Hello and welcome to The Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We're back and it's on the back of Spurs losing on penalties to Paris Saint-Germain. And look, I'm going to say this right now, and a lot of people will get this on the playback, but I know it won't feel like it right now, but there was a huge amount of positives to come off the back of what we've just seen in that Super Cup final against Paris Saint-Germain. Spurs, 3 minutes away they were. 3 minutes away from beating Champions League winners Paris Saint-Germain. And the tactical setup from Thomas Frank all but worked for 85 minutes. And I think what we did see really is what we do know is that the drop-off in terms of what Spurs have on the field to what then comes on is a big problem. And which is why there is such an amount of frustration out there that we know there's a need to do business in this transfer window. But look, helping me go through it, break it down as we return for season 8 of Last Word on Spurs, I've got actors TJ Ramini, Darren Hart, and fresh on the scene for this season, we're delighted to welcome Jim from Oso Spurs into our post-match shows. Oh, what a post-match show to make your debut on officially in a competitive season. And thank you so much already for the audience that are building here to reflect on that defeat to PSG. Look, before I bring the guys in, let's take you through the match facts and the stats. I know many won't want to see these right now, but look, it finished Paris Saint-Germain 2, Tottenham 2 over 90 minutes, and then straight to penalties. PSG edged it 4-3 on penalties. In terms of shots apiece, 12 for PSG, 13 for Tottenham. Spurs actually heading shots on target as well, 5-3. PSG more block shots than Spurs, 5-3. Shots inside the box, Tottenham dominating that figure itself, 9-5. Tottenham busier of the two sides defensively, which was really a key attribute about the game, about how Spurs were admirably so well structured, so well organised defensively under Thomas Frank. 20 clearances to the 15 of PSG, 8 interceptions to the 4. Corner count, PSG had 8, Spurs 3. The possession stat, I know it's not pretty reading for some out there that do want Spurs to be a dominating side under Thomas Frank. We hope that's going to come eventually. But 74% for PSG to 26% in terms of the possession. And then XG, 1.12 for Paris Saint-Germain to Tottenham's 2.04. It just shows you how Tottenham on the night looked the more likelier side to score. Let's start if we can. Let's start with you, Jim, if we can. Because I know it's a real gut punch, this one. It really is. And it's really tough to take because I think the players were superb for 85 minutes. And all I can really put it down to is just they simply run out of steam at the end. It's really hard to not feel gutted about it. Look, I'm gutted for the players. I'm gutted for the manager. I'm gutted for the fans. I think we gave everything and I think we deserve to win. And I try and remain as unbiased as I can as the host of this show. But I do say, as what I said in the opening top of the show, there are a lot of positives to take away despite that defeat. But I do think the substitutions ultimately killed us. But Kudus, Richarlison, Polina, they were exhausted but gave so much. And those that came on really got nowhere near to matching those that started the game. Jim, how would you sum up that defeat to Paris Saint-Germain?
I'd say for 80 minutes, we looked like the Champions League side and they looked like the Europa League side. And like you said at the start, the tactics were spot on. I think when you're going up against the best side in the world, you've got to overload your midfield. But when we saw that lineup and we saw, gosh, like where's the creativity going to come from? I think we've become so fixated on the whole, we need a 10, which we definitely do, by the way, that we're unable to pass the ball forward without one. And this was a reminder that we do have Romero, Van der Ven, Porro, Bentancur, who are all Champions League level players. Spence as well, I think we'll get onto him later, but he showed why he's so deserving of a new contract. And then other good players like Kudus, Vicario, Bergvall, Paulinho, Danso, Sarr, big shout out to him. Like, there's loads of really good players in the squads that did really well tonight. And I feel that whole result was just a bigger sucker punch because we truly held our own against a Champions League, winning side who are there for good reason and deserve that status as the best team in the world right now. And it just hurts so much more because when the narrative and the conversation is all around what we know we need a couple more players in the squad to really take it to that final step that makes it a side that competes against these kind of teams, and we don't have them today. And then you see the subs come on and you think, imagine if that was Morgan Gibbs-White. Imagine if that was Savinho. You think that would have been the 5-10% difference to scraping over the line versus not. So it makes it even more frustrating that we haven't got those in. But I think Frank showed why we hired him. I think he set up in a way that set us up with the best chance of success. He did really, really well. And I would say he's learning too, right? Like he's gone from the biggest game of the week for Brentford as a big Premier League game to a cup final with Tottenham on a big, big stage, knowing how much it means to us. And he's going through learnings too of how to kind of manage those situations, even though I think that's a bit harsh. I'm kind of making out like he's done something wrong. I don't think he did much wrong or anything wrong really today. He had the tools at his disposal that were half fit players in many cases who, if they were even fully fit, I think would have been enough to get over the line. So it is what it is. It just really hurts. But I've said it and I'll keep saying it. We're better than we make out. We could be even better. But I think we're not at this bottom half team that we might feel like we are. We are a top half team that is quite rightly within a good shout of finishing in the top 6 this year. And we showed that today. And if we play like that every week in the Premier League, we will be in the top 6. And I know that's not everyone's ambition. Our ambition is to win trophies. Our ambition is to be in the Champions League regularly. But there was more positives than negatives, but the one main negative of not winning that game outweighs all of that, right? So it is what it is in that sense.
I'm going to steal a little caption that I saw on social media, and the fact is that Spurs have come a long way in this last 12 weeks. If they're getting hammered for not winning a double European trophy, right, in the space of, the last 2-3 months. And I think that kind of tells you that there was, a really good display in there, albeit at the end, I will just say, and I'm a massive, massive Thomas Frank fan. I do feel that the subs undid us at the end. But if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure really what he can do. I mean, when you look at the bench that he's got there, there's not a huge amount of options, I'm going to be honest with you, to change it. I mean, this is why, again, there's been so much frustration in the Spurs fan base, because you just know that when you look at the bench Spurs have got there, Kinski, Austin Davis, Vuskovic, Byfield, Gray, Bergvall, Odebertel, Johnson, Solanke. I know, obviously, of course, we've got one of our highest scorers on the bench in Johnson, of course, scored the winner in the Europa League final. Solanke, of course, did eventually come on, but there's not a huge amount to change the game. And that's why I do feel for the manager. I feel, he's shown us what he can do up against Paris Saint-Germain for 85 minutes with that squad. Could you imagine what he could do if he is given a few more experienced quality players? Because like Jim has said, I mean, we're not a 17th place team. I don't think we're a bottom half team. I'd go as far to say that I agree with Jim. I think we're not only a top half team, we could even be a side that can be in and around the top 6 if the manager's given the tools to do the job. Dal, welcome back. You've had a nice summer away from us. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't look too scared to jump back in the saddle. Look, it's hard. I can't do much but applaud Thomas Frank for the way he set Tottenham up, for the effort the players gave us. And we're as Spurs fans used to lose in heartbreaking circumstances. We're just used to, we've been used to become accustomed to that, of losing in such heartbreaking circumstances. But I think, as Jim said, we've done way better than many thought we would have done with a hampered squad, with arguably not having a designated number 10, no Maddison, as we know, no Dejan Kulusevski, an area where we know for Spurs they're crying out. Now go and get Thomas Frank, some quality players, and back the manager. What did you make of that performance now for you?
You know what? Let's also be real. There was a lot of us that were terrified that we could get battered today. Yeah? There was a fear in most of us today that the best team in the world could absolutely rip us apart. And for 75 minutes, they couldn't put a glove on us. They couldn't touch us. And that part of that, let's be real, and this is me, real football fan, they've only had a week of pre-season. So they're sluggish. We're at the end of our pre-season, about to get into the season, so we should have been ahead, and that showed in the game. But what we have in Frank, which people have been asking for, is a tactical manager who adapts to the team we play against. And Frank put himself against Enrique and went, let me test myself. And tactically, he had it down. The players, every man for a man, did the job he asked them to do. Then the game changed because unfortunately for Tottenham, we're still not quite there fitness-wise. So we fall off and we fell into the low block, which is a danger zone for Spurs under any manager. We just went aside that the low block doesn't work for us. There are other elements that we will highlight throughout the game of individuals and moments and pivotal moments and changes in the game, substitutions, etc. But for me, I walk away with pride right now. I walk away going, if this is where we're at now, where could we be? If we can all commit to this, where could we go? Where could this Tottenham side go? We haven't got the squad that we need yet. And I think today a win may have papered over that and may have gone to our chairman, who we know likes to put the checkbook away quickly and go, no one needs anything because we beat Paris Saint-Germain. We won the cup. We don't need that investment. This really does go, if you give us what we need, you get what you want. Daniel Levy, you're saying it with chest. You want to win the Champions League. You want to win the league. That squad can't do it. Give it more, it can. Give the manager a chance, maybe he could. Because what we've got with Thomas Frank is, he is a smart manager. You can see his intelligence. He has football intelligence. The challenge he's now going to face is he had a week to prep for this Paris Saint-Germain game, and he did great preparation for it. He won't have a week for every game. And that's where he's going to really be tested. Can he make Tottenham perform at this level at different stages of the season when the pressure's on and this squad starts to fall away? Because injuries will hamper it. Because if you're working that hard, which everyone did today, they're going to get tired. And the bench is going to be really maximised. It's going to be needed. So it's exciting, but it has fear attached to it very quickly. And that's what Tottenham has for us right now. It was exciting to see for 75 minutes, we could hold our own against Paris Saint-Germain and go, welcome to the Champions League again, Tottenham. These players can play there. We know they can. But the but is always there. But what if we get injuries? What if we don't get the players in? We could be short again. And that's the fear that is always going to linger when we wear our beautiful badge and we support this beautiful team. Do we always leave ourselves short? Because today, as I said at the beginning of my first sentence was, we feared we could get battered today, but this team didn't get battered. It outclassed, outsmarted, outfought, and showed Paris Saint-Germain and showed the rest of the league, by the way, don't play with us this season. Don't think you're going to run over Tottenham this season. Don't think you're getting a back four that don't know how to defend, because we defended well today.
It was so organised. So organised.
Organised. And that's good to see.
Yeah. Dale, you mentioned about the injuries. And look, I mean, coming out of UT, the season hasn't started yet. James Maddison's out with an ACL. Destiny Dog is out with a knee injury. Kulusevski's out with a knee injury. Dragishin's out, still recovering from that ACL. Manor Solomon's got a calf injury. We might not see Manor Solomon. Kota Takai, new signing in the summer, he's got a plan to face your injury. Brian Hill's out of a knee injury. I've named some players that aren't really going to be there. But the reality is, as Dale said there, you know, for any side or for any squad that's going to be able to compete, they're going to have to be backed. And Thomas Frank's going to need that backing. And I feel for anybody out there that may have been concerned about whether Thomas Frank is up to the level of certain managers like Luis Enrique, we've just seen there across, 85 minutes, matched him toe-to-toe, went there, tactically in elements of that game, outclassed him. And again, it just comes back down to that point now. Over to you, Daniel Levy. Will you back the manager? Because for most of that game, Tej, Thomas Frank had played a blinder. We know PSG thrive on dominating possession by controlling the midfield form when they launch their dangerous balls. They couldn't do that. Thomas harassed them, they pressed them, they got the ball in areas where really we were excelling in creating those big chances. You know, he relegated the ball possession to less potent areas, but people will say PSG weren't at their best, but the fact is, it's Thomas Frank that negated a lot of those issues for them. And, you know, let's be honest about it, they're one of the dangerous teams in the world, tactically so set up perfectly. It's a real shame, as we said in the back room, the manager, the players don't get the reward for 85 minutes of what was a really, really good performance. Lovely to be back, Tej.
Lovely to be back on the show, and with a terrific panel as always. And of course, like you said, Rick, thank you to the viewers and the listeners who've stayed up late, back in England. And I know that this show is watched all over the world, so thank you for joining us. Of course, I'm disappointed. You know, we were right there, and it would have been such a wonderful, no pun intended, crowning moment for Thomas Frank to mark really his first truly competitive game with a wonderful European trophy. And of course, to have our new captain in Christian Romero, who was absolutely, I mean, he was just titanic today, wasn't he? He was superb. And to have him lift the trophy and then to bolster all of our spirits, and to Jim's point, to prove to the world we're not actually as bad as people say we are and love to say we are. I've often said we are the most derided Premier League team in the world. That isn't just my opinion, that's actually a fact. And so, yes, disappointing, but my goodness, like Darren said, we're all imbued with a certain feeling of confidence and pride. And I have little doubt that Premier League teams are going, holy moly, we have underestimated Tottenham. And I really think that they're going to be a very, very difficult team to beat this season. You have to think as well, I've often said this because we've had so many managers coming in and out of the club, that it's very difficult to adapt to a new system. It really is, and a new mentality, a new philosophy, even just a different voice and a different energy. Right, thank you, mate, for joining us in India, 3:45 in the morning. Thank you so much. However, this team under Thomas Frank, it seems to have kind of immediately, like again, all of us, we were saying on our texts to each other, our chats to each other, the comments here, people sending so many comments to me on X about our structure and our shape. Everybody looks like they just kind of know what to do already. I remember saying that, I think it was after that dreadful Reading performance, but again, just the shape of it, everybody sort of seems to know, well, this is my job under this manager. And I was saying to some of my dear friends back home that even players that we perhaps didn't have that much faith in, like Richie, just seemed to really flourish in this system under Thomas Frank. And I'm not saying that Ange wasn't a much-loved manager and wasn't a person that people had great admiration and affection for. But it just seems that for whatever reason, whatever Thomas Frank is trying to impart, they've managed to absorb that immediately and then put it into action. As we've all correctly stated, it was the substitutions that killed us. But again, I don't think you can put that on Thomas Frank either. Mohamed Kudus run himself into the ground, and my goodness, he is electrifying. Mendes didn't fancy him at all. And what I loved as well, to a man, is that we showed PSG no respect, none. It wasn't like we were stepping into the arena with the greatest, most dangerous team in the world. To Jim's point, if you had to pick which one of these teams won the Europa and which one of these teams won the Champions League, it was Tottenham that were on the ascendancy for 85 minutes. So I'm really proud of the display, and I'm excited about what this team is going to look like under Thomas Frank. I mean, Palhinha looked fantastic as well. Like, there were so many positives. Spence, I'm sure we'll go through and we'll talk about all the individuals that are so deserving of our praise. But I think the number one individual that is deserving of our praise is Thomas Frank. Well done for coming in and righting a ship that was really in dire straits, and perhaps cruising us very nicely into some pretty generous waters. I'm excited about the coming season.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's, as many people know this, obviously we record the show literally straight after the game. So, I've always tried my best to try and keep some kind of rationale balance. And it is really hard. I mean, I just feel so much for the players and the manager. Football, as we know, is quite an unforgiving game. And it does feel on this one, it's really unforgiving because what this would have done for the squad ahead of the Burnley game, which I don't want that in any way now to have any adverse effect. It shouldn't do. If anything, really, I hope, Jim, I don't know if you agree, because of the nature of how well we played for the majority of that game, do you think that will give the players even more of a lift going into Burnley, or do you have any worry the fact that we've gone to penalties, obviously been taken, on this occasion it doesn't go to extra time, but just the mental exhaustion of that game, does that worry you ahead of Burnley, Jim, or do you just think the players will get a lot from that ahead of the Premier League opener?
I don't think the players will lose any faith in Thomas Frank over that. But I think there's obviously a physical tiredness that goes with having played on Wednesday night, flying back Thursday, only having a half training day on Friday, and you're into a game on Saturday. That's difficult. But I'd look at the positives that, based on that situation, I'd like to be playing Burnley at home. And that's exactly what we've got. And even those players, I think, that we brought on, that people will see the drop off in from the first team, there's still players that the likes of Burnley would, love. in their squads, that they'll be their standout players and they'll build a team around in many cases. So it's not that big a deal in that sense. I feel like this whole game though had a bit of a vibe building up to it, where you had groups of fans kind of who are still not really fully sure on the decision to move on to Frank, and some people wanted to stick with what we had before, and therefore it's an opportunity to say, if we'd had that mentality of the last guy, we'd have won this. And other people go, wait, we'd have been 5-0 down if we'd had the last guy. And then that kind of proverbial loop goes on, and then there's all these kind of the insinuating comments. It's like the tactics, the mentality. I don't think we should look at it like that. I think we should look at it as we've got a good squad of players here with a forward-thinking manager who's willing to learn as well. We often look at these managers and we go, this is them at the peak of their powers. No, it's not. Like, these guys are in their positions because they're so driven and determined to improve all the time that they'll be looking at themselves in the mirror harder than we're looking at them on their TV screens. And Thomas Frank will take lessons from that. And this is a big one for him. What an opportunity for him to go straight into a cup final, feel that heat, feel that pressure for the first time. We'll go into it the second time calmer with a different game plan. I don't put any of it on him. I'm kind of implying that this was somehow on him. I think the difference today was the fact that Paris Saint-Germain have 25 players, probably all on over 100 grand a week, who are on those salaries because they can pull something out of nothing. Yeah. And that first goal was just one of those moments. That's why you pay the money for that kind of player, because they can just whip it in so perfectly out of nothing and change a game and turn it on its head. But when we're Spurs, we try combat those sides through having a squad that can consistently outperform them across a pitch with tactics and just kind of mentality or whatever it is. But look, we just didn't have the personnel, I think, to get it up. If you'd given Frank that squad today, we'd have won that game. If we'd swapped squads, we'd have won the game, obviously. Enrique had the easier job today than Thomas Frank. I thought the players are brilliant, and overall, I think we can take more positives than negatives. If we'd gone on to win that at a penalty shootout, the narrative would be very different. We'd be all saying, oh my words, this team's so much better than we thought. We're just one or two players away from a top 4 challenge here. We could build something really, really special. Let's go. But it's just a deflating feeling of defeat. That's not Frank's fault, but the hangover from other managers always failing at the final hurdle has rubbed off on us here. And then it's kind of given Frank, I think, a bit of an unfair perception that he's also in that camp. And we know it wasn't always the manager's fault as well. So, look, I know it feels a bit like people use the word copium to look for the positives in amongst the defeat, because we've been here so many times before. But I truly feel that there's far more positives than negatives to take away from that today.
Jim, you know what? Following from that point there, coming out of you, Dal, Luis Enrique's just come out and said Tottenham had a great match. They were stronger than us. I don't know if it's a fair result, but that's football. We still have to improve. We have the ability to fight until the end, but we can still improve. And it's nice to hear that from the opposing manager, that a lot of credit goes to Spurs for the way they played, they fought, they battled, but ultimately weren't obviously getting that prize that we all wanted, which is, again, it's a tough thing to swallow when obviously only 2.5 months ago we did go and achieve the ultimate goal and the ultimate prize, right?
And let's remember that. Let's remember that. We are winners. We are winners. We are the Europa League champions. That's what we are. We are winners. We got the honour of playing this game because we are winners. You don't get this invitation for free. It's not like the Club World Cup where they throw an invitation to rich clubs and invite you to play. It's not one of those competitions. This is the curtain opener to our season. It closes last year's European season and opens up our new season. So there is so much positive we can take from this. This is a Spurs going forward. It's not Spursy. It's not old Spurs. It's his new Thomas Frank Spurs. And it was his first attempt in Europe. He got it early. He got to get the taste early. That's a good thing. He got to test himself against the best. This team battered everybody last year. Absolutely everybody. And we faced them and we held our own. Tactically held our own. This gives the manager confidence. As we just said, Richard beautifully said, now he's going to grow. He's going to go, yes, I can do this. Now let me focus. Okay, last 10, 15, it fell off. Okay, why did it fall off? Okay, maybe my substitutions weren't right. Maybe I didn't do X, Y. They're analysing like we're analysing. But this is great to do it now. Not 4th game into the Champions League when we're struggling. He's doing it early. He's setting himself up early. The camp is setting itself up early. I'm excited, and I think we should allow ourselves to be. And I think we could go on a Debbie Downer right now and go, "Oh, it's going to be same old Tottenham." No. Tottenham's winners now, team. We're winners. We can't go same old Tottenham because we're winners. You know what I'm saying, Rick? We're winners now. So stay winners. Let's stay with. That's right. Let's stay in that mentality because the season ain't started yet, and maybe the football gods helped us out today because we've got Burnley first. It could have been a horrible game first. I predict Burnley may sit deeper on us, so we suddenly have more of the ball. So it's a game where we're not chasing everybody because we're going to have tired legs. Kudus looked tremendous today. He looked someone who's up for the fight, the
absolute
battle.
tank of the guy. He got an absolute tank. So strong, so physical, so demanding.
Set him free in the Premier League. That's what we're looking to do. And also, tactically, it won't be that setup against Burnley. Because Thomas Frank, as we know from watching him, he sets up according to the team.
Of course.
They're not PSG. We're probably going to have Johnson starting. We're probably going to play different structures. And that's what we're here for. And that's what it's about. So let's find the positives in it. We would have loved to have won it today. It would have been great to start the season parading to our neighbours, look what we got, parading to the league what we got. But we can still go, there is a lot of potential here. It just needs a bit more.
Yeah, look, we're going to come on to
the single biggest difference that I've seen to that point, Darren, is under Frank. Like if I could surmise what's the difference between Tottenham last season and this season under Thomas Frank already is aggression. We were so aggressive. And of course, that does manifest itself in a multitude of ways. It manifests itself in energy and fight and will and desire and speed and passion. But it all stems from being aggressive. Yes, Kudus was magnificent. Sarr was magnificent. Spence was magnificent. Romero, terrific. Van der Ven, fantastic. Richarlison, fantastic. And so perhaps if I can just focus on him for a second, a much derided player by myself included. You know, is he good enough to be Tottenham's number 9? No, but like one of my dear friends back home and said, I know it wasn't a facetious comment, it was a genuine comment. If you don't sort of look at him as an out and out goal scorer, he's actually a really important player for us. And I think the reason why he is already flourishing under Thomas Frank is because what Thomas Frank demands of all of the players that play in our system. And again, to Jim's point, no one's going to look at PSG's side and Tottenham's side and go, Tottenham have a better team or a squad than PSG. But you can just outwork people. You can out-harry and harangue and harass people. And Richarlison is always going to give you that, man. Always going to give you that. If you were in a bar with Richarlison and you're having a drink and a nice chat and all this kind of thing, and it's suddenly kicked off, I'm telling you, he's not looking for the back door. I promise you he's not. And listen, you know, we've been in situations like that, right? And something kicks off and you look around and go, what are we going to do here? And your mate's gone. Like, you know, he's never going to be that guy. And so the fact that so much of what Thomas Frank is trying to build is this kind of unified, aggressive, never say die attitude. I promise you that's infectious. However, what it also does is it's very revealing for players who lack courage, who lack heart, and who lack the tenacity and the aggression to go in there and to stand up and be counted. And like I was saying just before the show started, I'm sure we'll talk about it. There was one person today who really didn't show that level of dedication and commitment and courage. And it cost us massively. But I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, look, we're going to quickly squeeze in our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. Look, we know it's a very, very late night. There is already over nearly 15,500 of you that are watching the show live. Look, thank you so much for your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs as we go again. And thank you as well to a lot of the love I received. I had about 100 DMs from people that saw us on TNT Sports. I don't know myself that was coming, but Jim messaged me and said, Jim said to me, was we on that night? And even Jim has probably lost count of the amount of shows he's done already.
When did we preview the game? I was thinking, my phone's blowing up. Like, you're on TNT, mate. And I was like, am I? No idea what's going on, but yeah.
Last one of Spurs, Jim. It's a roller coaster. You're on these days, you don't know when you're on. I tell you. Thank you so much for all the support out there. Like I say, if you can give this show a like and a subscribe, share it out to the wide range Spurs audience. We greatly appreciate it. Look, let's go through some of the comments we've had already. Thomas Frank has been speaking to the press. We've already touched upon, obviously, Luis Enrique, very complimentary of Tottenham. And Frank's first words were to the players. Frank said, I'd like to thank all the players who were brave enough to step up and take a penalty. And I think you can't get away from that. You know, that's the key. He said, there's no doubt in terms of what we'd like to do with the squad. We want to strengthen. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And Thomas Frank describes Tottenham's performance against PSG as a special operation that he started planning the day after the Bayern defeat. He said, in medical terms, the operation succeeded, but the patient died. Blimey, what an analogy that is, Thomas Frank. What an analogy that is. Look, Matisse Tell, I will just say this now. We're going to come on to Matisse Tell, and I think it's really important that we say this. I think we know we've got a responsibility out there as being probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest Tottenham podcast out there. I say that with, you know, being as humble as I can, that, you know, I don't like singling out one player or executing a player personally. And I think it's important to say at this moment, look, he's a young kid, Matisse Tell. We'll learn from this moment. And the Spurs fan base, like we always do, we will get behind players, right? I mean, we've always got behind players in certain circumstances. Yes, his penalty went wide. Yes, he can be given criticism. But I have to say just very, very quickly, it doesn't warrant any personal, I can't really have to say this, any racial abuse. I'm already seeing, you know, certain comments that do not sit well with me at all. And I really hope it's being dealt with accordingly, because the minority doesn't represent the majority. And whilst we can sit here and we will critique the footballing opinion of maybe the player, when it goes beyond that, as I can tell you as a show, we're not interested in that. So I will just make that very, very clear, because I'm already seeing certain comments that I don't feel sits well with me online. And I think as a show, we've got a right to call that out. And I think we have to call that out, because again, anyone that puts on that Tottenham badge, wears that Tottenham shirt, will always get our support until the day they're no longer here. Frank just very quickly said on the experimental system that I knew that we had to do something a little bit different against Paris Saint-Germain. So it was like a special operation. And as I mentioned, that comment he said, it was in a medical terms, the operation succeeded, but the patient died. Dale, you were laughing when I put that analogy out there. What did you make of that analogy from Thomas Frank? It's an interesting
It's genius.
take on it.
It's genius. It's genius. And what he basically, if people want to see what he's saying deeper, is with an operation, he said everything he wanted them to achieve, they achieved. The last bit was getting that person through. It was a perfect plan, but they died. Of course, that's what he's saying, because we should have won it. With the plan, it should have executed well. But the thing that stopped it is penalties. That part of it, you can't use logic with. And that's why he thanked the players who stepped up. He's not talking about the last 10, 15 minutes of the game even. He's going, look, the plan worked. We outsmarted, we outfought, we put ourselves in a position to win the game. And that's what he was aiming for. He showed that he can go up against Enrique, and he did that. And I think now it's an interesting point, like just segueing over to tell us we're there and opening that door. Like as you said, Rick, Spurs fans, football fans in general, when we have players in our side, it's hard when we don't like what we see. And we're fans and we all have our own eyes and we see it in different ways. Tell had a night that he's going to feel bad about. Anyone who misses a penalty is going to feel bad. Anyone who doesn't feel that they execute what they want to execute is going to feel bad. Even in our walks of life, when we don't do our best, we feel it. I've said it publicly, I've said it privately. Tell as a signing is one that I worry for. And I feel that us as fans are going to be very pivotal in what happens with Tell going forward. Because if you look at it, we bought him and now we're trying to already buy someone to play ahead of him. Now, that must be really difficult for a young man to go, I came here to get first team football. I left Bayern Munich to come to Spurs because they said they wanted me. They're saying they're going to play me. And now I'm hearing everyone talking about someone else being bought to play where I play ahead of me, same age as me, or a little bit older than me with the same potential as me. So it already screams of a man who's going to be insecure, worried, and concerned about his game. So that today may have been a very nervous young man who came on and couldn't do what he needed to do. So right now, let's be careful we don't kill him. And I use that word properly, kill him. Because you do that to him now, we need him for the season. He is going to get minutes for Tottenham. He is going to be a player that we're going to need to rely on at times. So let's not break him today. Let's not break Van der Ven for missing a penalty. We can critique him, but let's not kill him. Let's not break him. That's not fair.
And I think that's the thing, right? I mean, we're only just getting going here. We are. I mean, the thing I will say about last one Spurs, and maybe it's again, I reckon to say this. I think we've got the greatest guests on the show, right? I think the people that we've got on this show, I think are great for their football opinions. They're great value what they bring to the show, and. Now, stop flattering me. It's honestly, and for me, I just think we all know we've got a responsibility when we come on here with the audience size that we get to be very careful in terms of what we do say, and so it's given out in the right manner. And look, we are going to most certainly, I'm going to most certainly have critiques on Tell's performance, as TJ's said earlier, and we are going to debate that, and there's nothing wrong with that, But I think when it crosses that line, that's where I feel uncomfortable with it, and I'm sure we all do. I know we do. I know we all, because I know you guys. I know you all. So look, we'll turn our attention back to the game itself. Like I say, I mean, there's still a lot of compliments coming in from Luis Enrique for Thomas Frank and Tottenham. He said Tottenham deserves so much more. They play better than us, and football is just sometimes really unfair. And he said, look, I'm happy for that, but I must say it was unfair. I mean, so honest. I mean, listen, it's easy being honest when you've won. I mean, look, I'm sure if that result didn't go well, you might be getting a completely different Luis Enrique. But the Enrique we're getting is someone that is very humble and recognises that Tottenham on the night deserves so much more, because you could see that, and it was evident over that 85 minutes. I'm going to take us back, if I can, to the starting 11, which again was going to be highly debated for this one, most certainly. And in case people weren't wondering, Daniel Levy wasn't in attendance for this game. The notion of what is going around is that Daniel had a pre-engagement to attend where his daughter is starting university in the US, and that is why Daniel couldn't be in attendance for the game. I will also bring to your attention, there is people out there that are suggesting Daniel Levy wasn't there because he is in a certain other part of the world, maybe trying to tie up, if not 1-2 deals for Tottenham. That's what's on the grapevine. And listen, we'll see if those do come to fruition, of course, in the coming days. But in terms of Tottenham's team and the way they lined up, I do want to say that Vinay Venkatesham was in attendance, as was Fabio Paratici in his most animated self, that spent a lot of the time, for those that weren't aware, on the old blower. He was on the phone for a lot of the time during the game. So was Johan Langer in attendance as well. So there was a lot of the Spurs, you'd say, hierarchy, board members in attendance. But Thomas Frank named what for him was going to be arguably his strongest side, what he could put out, given, like I said earlier, the nature of the injuries that have been sustained so far. He did have Dominic Solanke back and available from the bench, while João Palhinha made his first competitive start for the club after playing 45 minutes in that defeat to Bayern Munich alongside Rodrigo Bentancur. He utilised the back three for the first time this summer in order to counter PSG's attacking quality. That meant a start for Kevin Danso alongside Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven, and a great also a moment for 16-year-old Janai Byfield, who was amongst the Spurs sub. So the Tottenham team read Vicario, Danso, Romero, Van der Ven, Porro, Bentancur, Palhinha, Spence, Sarr, Kudus, Richarlison, with a bench of Kinski, Austin, Davis, Vuskovic, Byfield, Gray, Burwell, Odegaard, Johnson, Tel, Solanke. Jim, I'll come to you. I know a lot of people before the game, maybe the back three threw them by surprise. Did it throw you by surprise that we went for a back three, Jim?
It didn't throw me by surprise in the sense I thought Frank was going to set up defensively and go on the counter in the way that a lot of people asked us to do over last season when you come up against a better side, or in a big game. They said, I think what plan B meant in people's minds was, can Spurs play as the low block for once? And can Spurs do what other teams are doing to us in reverse? And when I saw that lineup, I thought, that's what we're going to do today. But what I really enjoyed was, and it matches up with what Frank said, he likes to attack. They came out with pressure and intensity to dominate the game. It wasn't like we were out there to counterattack and absorb pressure. It was there to pressure the opposition and force them into mistakes and win the game that way. So it was really positive in my eyes from that sense. And it was an adaptation of, we don't have a fit 10. So how are we going to win this game? How are we still going to get the ball forward? And I thought we still progressed the ball really well. I also wanted to shout out to Danso because I didn't realize we had this long throw in our locker, which was nice to see from him. And I think we saw things like that were just a few small things of we've identified some strengths of players we didn't realize we have, and we've utilized them already off the bat. And I'm thinking, well, in 6 months from now, we're going to find some more opportunities out of other players of ways we can improve them. Because Frank has spoken before about don't always make it about improving young players. It's about improving senior players as well. And a shout out to Bentancur as well. I think Spence, fresh lease of life, absolutely brilliant. Again, he was great last season as well in spells, but that's continued on. He completely warrants that conversation of a new contract. So yeah, the lineup kind of it didn't catch me by surprise, but it caught me surprise how we played from a positive sense, that is. And yeah, like you guys have said, like the bench was just kind of, it was such, you look at the bench and you go, I hope this lot can get through 90 minutes, because once we start turning to the bench, it's tough. But it also shows how much we needed to bolster the squad, because last year we were going, maybe Gray's the answer to 6. I think what we've realised is he's not. He's a great young player with a massive ceiling, and a lot of clubs would dream of a player of his ability in your side. But if you want to be competing in the Champions League, you can't be saying those players on our bench today are the answer for our squad today. And that's not a big disrespect to them. I think we've still got good players on the bench. Lucas Berrival is still brilliant and points of last season, but you see his youth at points. You see him. I know we spoke about earlier, like Tell got a lot of stick, but I don't think it was just him. And people have mentioned, Van der Ven missed his penalty as well. And I know we're looking at a performance, not just a penalty take. There's a bigger context there. But I didn't think Berrival did particularly well when he came on, unfortunately for him. But I don't like to throw any player under the bus, because it's not their fault. As long as they give 110% when they're wearing a Spurs shirt, that's all we can ask. If we get the profile of a player wrong, that's more on our scouting department than it is on the player themselves.
Yep.
And I feel like you mentioned earlier, Ricky, like the likes of Tell, he'll be looking in a mirror and no one will be more gutted than him. Does that mean he deserves to be kind of told, don't worry about it, you played well? No, he didn't play well, but I think it's wrong to signal him out as an issue. I think he's got a massive ceiling and he'll be great. He's clearly got a good mentality to get where he is in his life. He's probably worked his absolute butt off to get where he is in his life. And he's had to go from a club as big as Bayern Munich and be told, actually, you're not ready for this level. You're going to a different club who's still massive in Spurs, but you're still miles ahead of most 20-year-olds in your age in the Premier League. But even to get to the Premier League is a massive achievement. But he's got to learn and grow. And look, when we take these players on when they're 24 or 25, they're out of our reach. So the price we pay of getting them earlier is we've got to be going through that journey of development with them. And a lot of that bench is development focused, whereas that first team has some really established senior players. But we do need to bring in some more as well, because you've got to look at the situation of Bentancur as well. His last year of his contract's coming up, right? So that's another senior player to replace. Romero, 2 years left. End of next season, we can't stop it if Real Madrid's go, here's £80 million. That's another senior player you've got to replace. So we've got to get ahead of this by getting a couple of those players in this season, I think. And that would have been the difference today. But sorry, long story short, as Ricky, no, I wasn't surprised by the lineup, and I think he picked the right one.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because obviously the first moment of the game officially kicked off in the Thomas Frank era. There was a ball played back to Vicario, who lumped it up to Richarlison. So it felt that the Thomas Frank era was officially underway. Maybe slightly different to what you're used to in terms of the way Spurs do kick off. I mean, they were playing a kind of 3-4-1-2 shape. Kudus and Richarlison up front, Sarr behind them, slightly withdrawn. Dance on the right of the back three. Look, we started fairly well. Like Jim said, we saw that long throw audition from Kevin Danso. And there was, a couple of decent pieces of defensive work from Spence and Dembele, Spence, who actually slid into Dembele at one point and obviously helped Tottenham regain possession. And then there was that moment where we saw, Tish, coming over to you, 2 big tackles from Polina in 30 seconds.
Yes.
He already looked a lot sharper than last week's cameo against Bayern. And he does seem to have this incredible knack. Again, it's early days with Polina. Again, don't want to get too overboard here. He's to have that really good knack of being able not only to win the tackle, but when he's actually not first to the ball. I don't know if that's because he's got top-notch reactions to the extra touch from the attacker or a brilliant anticipation of where the ball will go. But ultimately, it's a hugely useful tool to have when if you're not going to be first to the ball, if you can still win it, that's tool's tremendous, right, for us, Teach?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, he's very strong, both physically and mentally, and also he's just very well balanced. Similar to Bentancur. They're just a very well balanced, just in the true sense of that word, not speaking figuratively. And he's going to be a very important player for us. Listen, to Jim's point about, I don't think we were surprised by the lineup. What was really pleasantly surprising is that, again, being the better side, and the PSG coach has come out publicly twice and said that now, being the better side against the best team in the world for 75 minutes with the front three of Spence, Richarlison and Kudus. That's really, really, it's so encouraging. And again, I think what Thomas Frank brings us, like I said, I just did a whole big spiel about how important aggression is, and then what the byproducts of aggression bring with speed and tenacity and desire and commitment. And again, as far as winning fans over, that's really all it takes. We really want to see you busting a gut. Sarr, I just think we've already said under Thomas Frank, I just think he is not only going to be a pivotal, a crucial piece of the Thomas Frank Tottenham era, but I just see this boy as putting himself on the map as potentially one of the best central midfielders in the game. He was absolutely sensational tonight. He was just too fast and had too much guile, and again, too much will and tenacity. The amount of times he's just picking people's pockets. He was absolutely magnificent. Now I'm going to speak about Tell very briefly, okay? I totally agree that he's a young man and it doesn't help us to destroy him or to kill him, like Brother Darren said. There's no point in going after this boy personally. I don't think anyone out there could put their hand on their heart and say, he came on with the intent tonight to undo us. He didn't, okay? He's a young man. However, like I said to Jim before the show started, in football terms, he ain't that young at 20. And so you do have to understand, you're not playing in a lower team or in the championship or even in a lower league. You are playing for one of the biggest teams in the world. And what was lacking, and I'm going to forgive the penalty miss. I'm going to forgive that. If he is lambasted for missing a penalty, well, why isn't Mickey van der Ven lambasted? I don't begrudge either of them for missing a penalty. However, what I do take exception to is it just looked like a lack of will and tenacity and energy. Of course, you have huge boots to fill when Kudus comes off the pitch, right? So what you can say to yourself, because this is a mental decision, and I speak about this all the time, this is a mental decision. You can say to yourself, before I come onto the pitch, because you know you're coming on, you're standing on the sideline, the guy's got your number ready, you can say to yourself, I'm going to absolutely kill myself from the moment I get on till the final whistle. It'll probably be about 15 minutes, and I will destroy myself. I will spend the next few days in an ice bath thinking, my legs, my legs, my legs. And I just didn't see that. And that's all I'm going to say about him, okay? You must show that level of commitment if you are wearing this beautiful shirt and badge that we hold so dear. And that's it. They make mistakes, and I think that's all that needs to be said.
I think that's fair too. Again, we said it. Not a good cameo. He lost the ball on the edge of his own box, lost the ball a few times, and then sent his penalty wide. Again, not a great cameo. And I think we'd be remiss here to try and say anything but that, because that was honestly the reality of the performance. We can only
There's
really
no more that needs to be said, Rick. That's it. That's the reality of it. We all saw it. We all know it. But there's no point in breaking him down. He is a Tottenham player. And let me throw this out there, gang. And again, this isn't just, TJ always manages to find the silver lining. Sarr has already improved under Thomas Frank, right? Spence already looks like he's improved under Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank and Cochrane and his entire training staff have a reputation for turning promising young talent into sensational young talent. So let's hope that he will work his magic on Berval, on Archie Gray, on Matisse Tell. And then all of a sudden, this lightweight squad, both figuratively and literally, suddenly looks like a young, hungry, dynamic team that could really help us out when we need them. You know, and that's real Tottenham fans. That isn't me going, oh, you know, let's cut the kid a break. I was very hard on him, and I will be hard on anyone who doesn't try their very best. That's all that needs to be said.
Listen, I think that's right. I mean, I hope when we're going over to one thing down, pivoting a little bit, because this is your era. Well, it's both you and TJ's industry, the acting industry. There was a lot of animation from the bench from Thomas at times, and I think what was quite interesting.
We love a performance, don't we, Darren? We love a performance.
But what was quite interesting is the level of detail that we saw Frank actually giving to the likes of Spence. Brought him over, spoke a lot about the position of where he needed to be. We actually then saw Matty Wells, the assistant coach, also needing a lot of instruction from the bench. And I don't know if anyone's seen this so far. What I would say, and what we've seen in the 5 pre-season games, and in this Super Cup final in particular, is the level of detail that is actually going on during the game. That they're almost, and I'll come to this as well with Jim as well. I'm sure Jim as well will touch upon this on Also Spurs, because they have a weekly segment on there with a coach himself in JJ. I remember me saying, Jim, that they actually do a lot in terms of the coaching aspect when they break it down on this. Please make sure you do go and check that out with Also Spurs. But it's very interesting on this point, Dale, to come to you. He does almost, in a way, coach the players through the game. Could you see that as well? That almost talking them through the game. And 100%. It's very different, let's be honest about it. Again, no criticism of Ange, because Ange had his way, but very different to what we were used to in these last 18 months.
100%. Very, very different. He's a coach. I use that term very strongly. He's a coach. He is coaching continuously. And that's why his systems will change. And on the training field, he'll teach a method, he'll teach a structure to be implemented in a game. And if it's not working, he will continue to guide. And if it is working, he will continue to support. He's always adapting. He's watching the opposition. He's seeing the changes. He's informing the players of that. Sometimes when you're on the pitch, you don't always see it. It's, as you said, I'm an actor, yes. So sometimes when I'm on stage, I may not be catching it all, and my director's seeing it from a different eye and go, Dale, you know, if you said it this way, try it now. Now go for it. I implement it straight away. It changes the dynamic straight away. And that's what you get when you've got a good coach. You can see what his players need, and he's giving it to them instantly. And hopefully there's instant change. Now, it's interesting what we spoke about just then about how our squad is development. And Jimmy made a great point about our bench. And what I looked at in our starting 11, which we're starting to get, and we're right on the cusp of, is when you look at a player like Archie Gray. He was bought as a 6, and last season played everywhere but 6. Now we have someone ahead of him, Paulinho, who is what I believe to be a true 6. Having that player on the training field with you, next to you, opposite you in training games, being in position to go, how the hell did he get there? Having him in your ear to go, yeah, what I do is, this is what, that will develop this player so much more. Archie Gray has someone to follow, to learn from. And that's what we're starting to have. And I feel that that's where we're at for our development players, having a great coach, but also an 11 that can do the job. So you as a young player can watch. Pap Sarr is a prime example of that. He has watched, he has learned, he's watched Kulusevski, he's watching Maddison. And in that role that he's playing now, between the 8 and the 10, he's going, I can do this now. I've seen these players do it. The coach has given me the freedom. Let me play there. Let me explore there. And it's that confidence. And part of that does come from the man who went before. Because Ange gave him confidence to express. And now you've got a man who goes, oh, I see what you can do. Now I'm going to mold you into a system that allows you to show me what you can do to a higher level. Danzo's throw, we never knew it was there. He arrived last season, never took a throw on. Now we've done it in training. And I've gone, oh, hello, my friend. Now when I play a back 3, you're my throw on man. You look at Spence today playing as left back, but left wing back. Yes, we've seen it in his career. Suddenly you go, here's a player who suddenly can build up his goal ratio. There were so many moments when he made a run and didn't get the pass because it's a new system. But
bro, I mean, how obvious was the set piece? Like every single time we had a set piece, including the throws.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like every single time we had a set piece that was about sort of 35. I mean, we even had a set piece where Vicario took it from inside their half.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Great
that
tactic.
just immediately has illustrated that there are certain things under the Thomas Frank school of coaching. You're absolutely right, mate, to use that word really succinctly appraised as you always do. But it just immediately showed us that there are definite, irrefutable systems that are hard and fast under Thomas Frank. And I just think that this squad, this team has gone, oh, okay, boss. And I think that level as well of group cohesive understanding has bonded them in a way. It didn't look like a team that have only been playing together for a short amount of time. And again, still a lot of these guys are pretty new to each other, but they looked really, didn't they, Rick? Just
100% agree.
Really kind of connected and unified.
It looked like
You were talking about the pride that you felt.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes from that. You know, when they play for each other with great will. And so again, the drop off from that, like, so if the intent and the will and the tenacity and the commitment is there, you have to come in or even go above. If you drop a little below, we're all going to notice you.
The greatest compliment I can pay them, they look like a team. And it's crazy when you say that, because they've played 5-6 times together, and they've not even played the cohesive 11. Let's come on to, you mentioned about set pieces there. Let's come to you, Jim. Let's talk about the goal. It's hard because you want it to count for so much more than what it inevitably ended up being. But it was, again, a great moment, and you know it's come from the training ground. You can see that it's been worked on, and it, again, was finished really well from Van de Ven. It was actually a great save in the build-up, you have to say, from the goalkeeper, who, to be fair, look, not Donnarumma, it's their second choice, and to be fair to him, he had an excellent game. He really, really did. But, yeah, I mean, look, this set piece does the trick for Tottenham. It's the first competitive goal of the Thomas Frank era. Romero gets the flick on, Palhinha hits the bar, Van de Ven is there to slide home. It sparks wild scenes of celebration. And of course, as I said, Jim, it comes from a set piece. And clearly one, I'm sure you agree, Jim, it's what they've been working on, right?
Yeah, like it was, let's not forget, we hit the bar twice and the post once. So it's one of those other days where you're 3-0 up and it's over. But I feel like, just to finish off the old, kind of comparing the old with the new, I feel like Ange's whole philosophy was built around breaking the system. Like if he was training a boxer, he'd kind of go like, well, I'm going to teach you how to perfect the knockout punch, and that's all we're going to do. And when we get that right, no matter how much someone focuses on their technique and the game plan, we'll just punch through it. Whereas Frank is about perfecting what he knows works. It's about perfecting system. And that's what we saw today. It was all about, like, back to fundamentals. Like, what is a structured setup in a set piece? What does it look like? Who needs to be where? Which of our players exploit the weaknesses of the opposition? Let's marry them up together, and let's make sure that we're exploiting every marginal game we can at every opportunity. And it did really show. And I even thought Van de Ven, as an example, was a great one to talk about now because he scored the goal. But I thought we saw Van de Ven taking on a different role to what we saw last year. Van de Ven was brilliant last year, but I feel like he was brought in as much for his ability and pace to handle a counter-attack. Whereas today, he felt like a kind of quite a measured all-round centre-back that was there for other reasons, and he wasn't really there for his pace anymore, which was new to me. And hopefully that means, by the way, his hamstrings can stay intact better over the course of a season. But yeah, it was very clear. It was that there was that scene where Frank runs out with that, plastic tactics board of all the icons on and rallies them all over and starts showing them that's the image right there. That I thought that was the moment I was like, this is just such a different kind of approach to a game to have seen before. And that's, again, it's not to diss the previous manager, that there's strengths to having the other approach as well in certain situations. But those paid off for Frank. They worked. They resulted in 2 goals, and they nearly saw us through to a cup. So yeah, I could see it in abundance, and I thought the first goal was spot on. You were thinking, this is a manager who's gone, I don't have a 10. I'm not going to worry about it. I can win this through other means, and I can win it because I've got brilliant centre-backs. Whenever you ask Spurs fans to go, who are our best players? Do we have any world-class players? 2 of the first names that come out people's mouths are Van de Ven and Romero, yet people associate Tottenham with not having a very good defence. And I think Frank's gone, well, if they are my best players, I'm not just going to use them defending, I'm going to use them going forward as well. And that's what he's done today. And there were jokes going around, weren't there, that, you don't need Morgan Gibbs-White. You just need to sign Gahey and whack him as a 10 because we're going to be centre-back FC. But you saw the strengths of how he leveraged them. And I think we'll see that pattern across the Premier League, where when injuries kick in, he'll go, okay, where's my next biggest strength in this squad? And I'm going to focus the team around that this time.
Yeah. I mean, look, in terms of Van de Ven himself, again, it just didn't end for him in the greatest of circumstances. He missed the penalty, but I think overall, at right place at the right time to score. He actually, again, flashbacks to the Europa League final, made an unbelievable clearance at one point where, again, it kind of reminds you a bit of deja vu of what we went through against United in Bilbao. But again, really unfortunate that he doesn't go away the hero. And as T just said earlier, you can forgive a penalty miss because it's a lottery when it gets to that stage. And I think for a lot of players out there, to have to convert a ball from 12 yards, it gets to some. The pressure gets to some. He's not a natural penalty taker. Again, look at Solanke. Bearing in mind Solanke, I put it in comparison to Solanke. He's been out for how long? Took the penalty, and he had the most shortest step up I think I've ever seen a penalty taker have. So short, but so clinical in his penalty takers. So look, Spurs, as we know, winning 1-0 at halftime, could have been 2-0. Could have been so close to 2-0. Pinball in the PSG box after another long throw caused chaos. Could have said that effort which hit the base of the post and Spurs winning 1-0 in what I think we did say was a really disciplined 45 minutes from Tottenham. It was an encouraging display. It was disciplined, but at times bold and brave where it needed to be. So we're going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners and audio. Whilst we do that, we're going to hear directly now from Thomas Frank, who is reacting very quickly to, of course, that defeat. Can you call it a defeat? That 2-2 against PSG where Spurs lost on penalties. Let's quickly hear from Thomas Frank, and we'll be back after this very, very short break.
Thomas, tough one to take tonight. Talk us through how you saw it.
First and foremost, I'm extremely proud of the team, the players, the fans, the club. I think we showed that we can compete, and more than compete, against one of the best teams in the world, maybe the best team in the world right now. And basically for 75, 80 minutes, close to play the perfect match, up 2-0. And that's of course what makes it so brutal. And then even we're going into the penalty shootout where it's a flip of a coin. So many positives, but football is about winning. So brutal. But of course, it is in the end key good performances that over time will bring us success, and this was a good start.
And Thomas, fans will be so intrigued as to how you saw it tactically, because tonight it looked like a real tactical battle out there, and the lads had to work incredibly hard as well.
Yeah, but the players put an unbelievable shift in. They worked so hard throughout the game. I think we showed today that we will be tactical adaptable throughout the season, depending on who you're facing. This was a little of a special operation tonight, and an operation was successful. Unfortunately, the patient died. But we are so close with everything in the game plan, and football is margins. Sometimes there's margins.
Can we go into that effort a little bit more, because maybe people at home that watched on TV won't have seen just how much effort was put out there? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, but I think quite a few of the players were cramping because they worked so hard. You need to understand it's 28 degrees when the game started, humid, and we need to run and we need to work harder because PSG is a top team with a lot of individual quality. And then I thought we were brave. You saw the amount of time we went high pressure against them. I know we also defended low at times, but we tried to win after them.
And just on top of that, you mentioned the fans a little bit earlier on. They were outstanding tonight. They stuck with the team every step of the way as well.
Yeah, the fans was amazing. It was fantastic to hear them throughout the game. They did everything they could to back us and push us forward. So very happy and proud of that, and we will need them on Saturday as well.
Well, as you mentioned, it's one of those games it's all about victory. But are there things that now, looking ahead to the weekend, you go, I will take that forward?
Yeah, because you can say in a final, you can say in the end you don't care about the performance if you just win. But unfortunately, football doesn't work like that. You need to have good performances, and this was a very good performance. And can we put that together out there on Saturday as well? Then I'll be very happy.
Thomas, safe travels and good luck for the weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There you go. That was Thomas Frank there, reflecting on, of course, drawing 2-2 to Paris Saint-Germain. We'll remind you they are Champions League winners. Obviously, on the back of Spurs winning the Europa League, like Dal said, that got us into that competition and allowed us to play that final when we were 3 minutes away from beating them. Cut the penalties away from winning the competition itself, but it is what it is. Listen, thanks so much for everybody staying up for us. There is nearly over 15,500 that are watching the show live. quite simply unbelievable support for Last Word on Spurs. We're joined by brilliant actors, TJ Romini, Darren Hart. They're back for another season. We've signed them up. We've locked them away. We've got them locked down, and we've also brought in, certainly not drafted him. We're delighted to have Jim from Oso Spurs with us. Please make sure you're checking Jim out. Oso Spurs, some wonderful content over there. Very niche content that I can tell you will not find anywhere else on the internet. It is that good over there. And they've got wonderful interviews with coaches, different aspects of people that you wouldn't imagine you'd find, but you do find it over at Oso Spurs. Please check them out. Please, guys, keep liking, keep subscribing to this show. Also, can I just say, if Darren won't mind me saying this, the Heartman's also got a Tottenham podcast out there now, dropping fortnightly with our dear friend Ricky J. Norwood. Tea Talking Tottenham. The first episode is out, Dal.
Yes, mate. Tea Talking Tottenham. We're out. We're launching. We've given you the first episode in its bumps and all. It's our pilot. It's mental. But I'm telling you, it'll be good fun. But just to reassure everybody, I'm not leaving here. I'm always going to be here. Just so we're nice and clear. I just miss Ricky Norwood. We don't get to pod as much together. So we just did one. Just to be with each other.
You do realize now, Dal, that was your only chance to get out and you've lost it.
I'm not going. I told you. I'm not going. I'm here for the therapy always. The therapy cape is always here for you. Always here.
Dal's now got me stopped by all the dads tomorrow as he drops the kids off and they're like, yeah, we heard you. Yeah.
I got 2 weeks until we start school.
Sorry,
I'm good.
2 weeks. Remind me. 2 weeks. 2 weeks away from being harassed at the school gates. So thanks now for the therapy. Thanks for the therapy. Oh, bless you guys out there. We're here for hugs. I'll take some hugs on the way to Burnley on Saturday. All guys, I'll see you there. Look, we're going to move over to the second half of the game. And I mean, it was again a perfect start to a second half, Teach, coming over to you, because, you know, it almost seemed fitting on the day in which Christian Romero is announced the new captain of the football club. He goes and scores in a moment again, which was so beautifully done by a set piece. You know, again, there's something about Tottenham, 2 goals from 2 set pieces. It's simple, but it's effective. And it was really well planned from Tottenham and delivered. I mean, what did you make of it at that point, Teach? I would imagine we're 2-0 up, and we are at that point probably in dreamland. We're beating the Champions League finalists, or Champions League winners, should I say. We've just got off the back of winning in Bilbao, and you're thinking to yourselves, this could be 2 trophies in the space of 3 months, Teach.
Absolutely. And, you know, we were thoroughly deserving of it. I mean, we were very unfortunate not to go into half-time at 2 or 3-0 up even. And so when the second goal came along, of course, you know, leaping up and down in my living room, as I'm sure people were all over the world. But I wasn't surprised to be 2-0 up. They hadn't, you know, I don't think they registered a shot until about 70, maybe 75 minutes. So, and what a nice way to cap it off. He's so good in the air. He's just one of those guys. It's so hard to get on the end of those. And he just has the ability to do it. Bentancur again was very unfortunate not to score with his head. Actually thought he should have hit the target. Danzo, you know, had another one where he should have hit the target. So we were very good for that 2-0 lead. I know that people are saying, you know, PSG haven't had a preseason and all that kind of thing, and I completely understand that. But again, you can only play against the team that are standing in front of you, and they are the best team in the world, and we made them look very ordinary, whether they still had one flip-flop on or not. And so was really happy for the captain to find the back of the net. And he was so close to taking home another trophy and another final that he just seems to have a propensity of doing on the regular. I tell you what, man, as far as Romero goes, I think we'll get to another final this coming season, having seen how we just played. I do think that. And I just don't see this man going home with a second place medal again. I just think that he's such a leader. And again, that level of leader are born. There's no one who makes them or encourages them. You are born that way. And he's one of those. And so I do think that if and when we get to a final this season, we take it home, just because, again, that level of belief is so infectious, especially amongst the younger lads. And you can really breathe a different sense of confidence and commitment into a young player when it comes from your captain who's standing alongside you rather than from your coach who's standing on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, look, that point we're 2-0 up, we're flying, We're getting very, very excited. I will just say there's actually a great record out there of Argentinians to score in UEFA Cup semi-finals. He joins the likes of Messi, Feldman, Sensini, Aguero, Benenga, Ocampos, Vasquez, and Romero's added to that list. So well done to Christian Romero on that. And Spurs didn't really finish there. You know, we saw Porro have a curling deflected free kick, just go wide the left-hand post. There was also a great solid block with Van der Ven also in the mix as well. And there was that feeling, actually, the game was going on in that moment. It just felt PSG was starting to lose their heads a little bit. You know, you could see Pacho and Barcola having earned cheap bookings. Kvaratskhelia, he was just got hacked down by Van der Ven before he was stormed off after being substituted. Archie Gray primed to come on. A lot of, again, that tactics ball, like Jim said, coming out from Thomas Frank, advising what he was asking the players to do. And again, huge noise, I have to say, from the Spurs faithful. They were brilliant on the night, the Spurs fans, and Thomas Frank very much praising of those amazing fans that made that trip, of course, out to Italy. Those who I really feel for, you know, the fans, because again, you know, we go to games in optimism and hope that you want to see the team win. It's devastating when we don't win, but it goes actually back to, I can just say, Vicario makes a great save before the ball does go in the net for offside. But in that moment, to come over to you, Jim, there's an utterly stupendous block from Kevin Danso, and another example of a player that puts his body on the line quite literally. It hits him where it hurts. It hits you where really it's not meant to hit you. But that kind of summed up the dedication, the commitment for the game, for the manager, for the teammates. And that is why you come away from it feeling gutted. We don't go away with the trophy, right, Jim? Because of the moments like that from Kevin Danso.
Yeah, when he was down the ground, I was like, what's happened to him? And I just saw him, his hand go out and clutch that area of his body where I knew exactly what had happened, and I could feel that pain. We've probably all been there on this panel, being casual football players, but we haven't had to witness it from a world-class player with a 50-mile-an-hour strike or whatever it is. So yeah, he's an example to me of why you don't always need to find the expensive players to improve your squad, and the importance of experience. So you can find these players like him who are absolutely in their prime, and they see Spurs as a step up, and they're willing to fight for every inch, and they wear that shirt. Like, he gives me vibes of someone like Michael Dawson, who has nothing to do with Spurs growing up, but when he pulls on the shirt, you'd think he was a Spurs fan. You are so proud to be on the pitch as if you're one of us. And from day one, he just got it. You know, some players just get it. They just fit in. Yep. You'll never hear that guy complain, I imagine, over his whole tenure at Spurs. You'll never hear about him being late for training, nothing like that. But there'll be games, it'll be like a North London derby, and he'll be the one who'll put in a crunching tackle in the 91st minute that sees us through on a result. I think he's an excellent signing, and I think he's the type of person we could do with 2 or 3 more. Yeah, he's not going to go and start for a Man City or a Liverpool, but if you're bringing on Kevin Danso type players, you know, in the 80th minute, rather than, you know, throwing on someone who's trying to get these minutes for their, you know, experience levels, it's a very different kind of ball game you're putting yourself in.
It's so interesting, Jim. I'm just going to jump in there for a second. Sorry, mate, because he actually reminds me a bit of Konate. Like, you know, talk about he's not going to start for Liverpool. Konate never looked like he was going to be good enough for Liverpool. But again, I know this isn't a Liverpool show, this is a Tottenham show, but he made up for that, you know, slight difference in quality. Obviously, he's playing against arguably the best centre-back right next to him, just with will and tenacity and dedication and commitment. And that's why he's a player that's come in, and every single Tottenham fan on earth has just embraced him because he gives it his all. And of course, now that other player does play for a Liverpool, and I think that Danso is going to get better and better and better. And I'm really excited about seeing him become what I believe will be a world-class centre-back at Tottenham Hotspur. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
mate.
you're right.
It was just in my mind that comparison, and when you mentioned it, I thought I'd jump in.
My brother, when I was watching the game, he described certain players as mentality monsters. And like Solanke's
so well
one,
said. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
That they may be at an age where they can't improve anymore, but they will fixate on how they can get better. And you'll find the way that they'll listen to a coach and they'll just get better. Like Danso has improved since we bought him, I think.
Massively.
And he was already good when we got him.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited by like that signing. I'd love to see another Danso type signing on the left centre back position to give Van der Ven some cover. And then I just wouldn't be so concerned about having injuries at the back. And there's no disrespect to Ben Davies. What a model professional that guy is. But Danso, he's a natural centre back. Ben Davies is a left back who's converted his career to a centre back, always adapted, never complained, wonderful.
Mentality again, Jim.
Exactly.
Ben Davies, mentality.
100%.
Yeah.
But you notice it with Danso why he is profiled as a centre back growing up and going through his career, because he's just got these attributes that match it that bit more naturally than someone like Ben Davies would. And by the way, I don't want to start making this Ben Davies thing. I don't think Ben Davies by any shape or form the main issue in a Tottenham squad. But like he epitomizes everything I love about Spurs. And a couple more of those, please, this transfer window. If we could go get if we could get Eze in and Savinho and then another Danso type signing at the back, I think would be set up for a very beautiful season.
We would be. We listen. We know. We asking for too much.
It's the big if, though, isn't it, Ricky? It's always if.
It's always if with Tottenham. I mean, it is always if. But we'll just say again, with Danso, you have to consider. He's played on the right. He's had not a huge amount of minutes of pre-season. I think the great thing about is that game itself, he grew into it. He did actually grow into the game. So. I think that is the key aspect of it in terms of the fact, you're seeing players that haven't had a huge amount of football, but they are growing into the game itself. Look, this is where obviously it gets a bit trickier, as we know, because we start making changes. We see Solanke and Gray come on for the excellent Richarlison and Polina, and I think Teed has given Richarlison his flowers. And look, who knows? Is that Richarlison's last, appearance in a Spurs shirt? Who knows? It might be. But if it was, Richarlison put in such a shift for Tottenham, as we touched upon at the start of the show. He started with a few sloppy touches, but he really did grow into the game. His hold-up play, his running, the flick-ons. He was a massive, huge help in Spurs keeping the ball, especially in the first half. I think you can't get away from how much in the first half he really offered us that. I mean, Solanke, of course, came on. He didn't really offer as much as Richarlison, and he looked like someone who really had been out of the team for a long time, Dominic Solanke, and I feel for Solanke because, again, he's a player that, has picked up a couple of injuries throughout his time already at Spurs in this short time, and I just hope for him that's not going to be a trend. I really, really do. Because, these are players that, in the likes of Solanke, he is going to be Tottenham's, you'd imagine, main man up front. I don't see Spurs between now and the end of the window really going to put in a huge amount of money to go and replace that area in terms of the central forward line. So, we'll see. I mean, Polina, again, won that. He was told by the fifth official because he spent most of his time, actually, since coming off, acting as a coach on the technical area, shouting at the players. And I think, again, you can't get away from how bigger this will be for Tottenham. Someone like Polina, he's been around the block, played now for Bayern. Having winning players like that, those, as the guys have touched on, mentality monsters, could be absolutely huge for this Tottenham team. And I really hope, again, those players like Polina will pick up those other ones tonight, the younger players, and really make them understand, this is not even a bump in the road, but it just goes to show you what we can do if we all do pull together. And we say that pulling together, this is where PSG come back into the game. Dale, coming over to you, because Lee Kangin gets a goal back. It's not just a goal, it is a absolutely phenomenal strike, which, to be fair, I don't think Vicario could really have stood a chance on. It's a low drive from outside the box into the bottom right-hand corner. There's obviously only 5 minutes to go. At that point, Dale, are you massively worried, even with 5 to go, we're in for a tough next however long left on the referee's watch?
Oh, 100%, I'm sweating. I absolutely was sweating out. Absolutely. Because, as I said, the game had changed by that point, as I said earlier. And we had gone into that low block where everyone's sitting off. And that's why the substitutions, it's hard to then judge the players that come on, because the system had changed when they came on. And we weren't pushing out, we weren't pressing the way we were. When the ball went up, it was reliant on somebody up there to hold on to it for a few seconds just to kill the clock. It wasn't about progressive football, trying to attack or to overlap or anything like that. The game changed, and I think once they got this goal, of course we fear the worst, because, as I said, these guys are the champions of Europe. They are the world best team right now. On paper, they are phenomenal. They've proved it. So absolutely sweating at this point. And yeah, that's tough, and it wasn't deserving. Before that, they didn't deserve it, and that's why it's harder to swallow and take.
I do agree. And then obviously, of course, Spurs at that point, they decide to make again a couple of changes. Bergvall comes on for Pat Matasar, who again, as we've touched upon, was absolutely superb. Another great performance from Sarr, who is building really on those impressive displays of pre-season today. And unfortunately for Tottenham at that moment, comes the equaliser. And it's heartbreak, Teach, coming over to you, because again, we look at the nature of the goal itself and where it comes from. And obviously, the first thing you ask yourself is it avoidable? Could we do anything about it? Heartbreak, really. Goncalo Ramos nods in a cross by Dembele deep into stoppage time. Spurs have dealt fairly well with the pressure, but they buckled on that occasion. It was a tight call as Dembele was close to being offside.
I think
he
City
wasn't. 2-2, 4 minutes into stoppage time. I mean, at this point, Tej, you can just see the players really, they're dead out on their feet, aren't they? They're dead out on their feet for the ones that have
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And, welcome to the rest.
I think, is it avoidable?
Well, it's only fair that we
The second one less so. The first one was definitely avoidable, and that again came from what
the most interesting team in the Premier League this season, to be perfectly honest, which is not something I've thought for a long, long time, because for so many years when they were so much better than everybody else, they were quite boring, to be honest. They won every game 5-0. It left me kind of emotionally quite cold, because you kind of think there's no jeopardy here. But this season, there are so many questions.
The Premier League season lies before us like fresh now 380 games crackling across 283 days. Oh, like the world's greatest soap opera about to be played out without scripts, live, just the entire planet watching. In this show, first of 2 parts, my esteemed friend Mr. Rory Smith and I will break down the big questions for every single team. We'll give you all a sense of hope and a sense of existential dread. It's essentially why we watch. As those of you watching along on YouTube will see, we're here in person in King's Cross, London. It's being taped as part of our quite extensive annual football holiday to Britain, week-long amazing race, made possible by our friends, at the mighty Yeti. Thank you to them. And Raw, we are approaching this season of seasons, I'd like to say in the spirit of Ralph Waldo Emerson, write it on your heart that every day is the best of the year. We want optimism, right, for people?
I think that's what we should be leaning into in the summer. The winter is for nervousness and dread.
Yeah, and maybe September for some of the teams.
It's Britain, Rog. Winter starts in September.
It's fair. And hope, and its brother, Shattered Hope, possibly the greatest siblings in football outside of Jude and Joe Bellingham. For the purposes of this preview, we're going to separate the 20 teams into almost a Premier League of 2, Raw. Let's go all NFL style on you. North and South, as if the league was just 2 giant conferences. I think I've ripped this idea directly from Todd Burley's Dream Life. Part 1. Let's begin with the best part, the North.
It's appropriate it starts in the North, Rog. That's where football began. It's where Marxism began. It's the right place to be.
We were both born. I thought that's where you're going. It's also the home of your defending champions, Liverpool Football Club. Let's start there, because last year they were almost silent in the transfer window. They brought in just a single Chiesa, but then proceeded under new bald dad Arne Slot to potently and quite calmly cruise to the title in such dominant style. Seemed to play the last month of the season on the lash in Ibiza while hangovering through Guard of Honour after Guard of Honour. Then a seismic off-season, one marked by the trauma of losing Diogo Jota in such painfully searing circumstances. Before we delve into the football, we've got to begin. I mean, we have to. With the humanity that hangs over the season, almost unprecedented task, how to thrive, how to defend the title, and to mourn and grieve at the same time. We talked about this in the last show, Raw. They're about to kick off at Anfield for the first time in a locker room in which Diogo will not be, yet his presence is going to hang over so heavily.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that will, I think, define Liverpool's season, that for all the other stuff that's happened this summer in terms of the recruitment, you have a group of players, a group of staff, a club, and a fan base that is in mourning. And we don't know what that will look like. It feels kind of unsatisfactory to say that, but you can't predict how people respond in those circumstances. The players themselves may not know how they're going to respond in those circumstances. I think they probably won't know. Liverpool have made it really obvious that they're going to kind of confront it publicly. They're wearing a patch on their shirts and on their anthem jackets. That's the official term for the tracksuits they warm up in, saying Forever 20. There will be a statue at Anfield at some point or some kind of memorial made out of all the tributes that were laid for Jota by fans, by people in the city in the days and weeks after his death. You know, it's something that Liverpool, as an institution, are going to kind of look in the eye as much as they can. But grief is a really private thing as well, and the players are going to have a long, difficult journey ahead of them. And I think, to put it in a football sense, which isn't the most important sense, because the most important sense is how they respond as people, how they feel as people, that process for them privately. But in a football sense, I think the great question around Liverpool is almost kind of how do we judge them this season? You know, not necessarily what will they win, where will they finish. It's how do we respond to whatever it is that Liverpool do? How are we looking at them on both a professional level, because they are professional athletes, and on kind of a human one? And that's going to be really kind of difficult for everybody.
And how we even begin to analyse a bad game. Is it just a bad game? Is it? I mean, what do we know? And it is unprecedented water for all of it. We've talked about it a lot, and yet not enough week on week, as we're all trying to process it. Liverpool have asked journalists early this season who are interviewing their players, their manager, to avoid asking directly about the Jota situation, which, to be candid, I understand. These are grieving human beings. They can set their reality as they need it. They're putting out their own statements. And I did admire Arne Slot's words, which he put out on the club's website. If we want to laugh, we laugh. If we want to cry, we're going to cry. If the players want to trade, they can trade. If they don't want to trade, they cannot trade. But be yourself. Don't think you have to be different than your emotions tell you. I mean, that's remarkable. I mean, as a coach, a man manager, knowing that he's having to man manage a situation which is unprecedented in the Premier League, thank God, but he's almost ceding control.
Yeah, and I think that's what you have to be. It's a really kind of mature and sensitive and emotionally kind of available way of approaching it, because ultimately, I guess, if you look at Slot, he is a football coach, and he has his job is to get results and all that stuff. But he's also a manager of individuals in the sense that lots of people are managers of individuals in lots of different walks of life. And his job really is, at least in part this season, to kind of make sure they're okay. That's the thing that matters the most. What will be difficult for all concerned is trying to remember that once like the white heat of battle starts, once we're in the thick of the season, not thinking, oh, Jota died 6 months ago, they should be okay by now. That isn't how this works. Anyone who's been through this or something like it will know that is not how this works. You have to accept that, and we have to factor that in. It's a real test of kind of where we are as a culture. Because so much of what makes football great is that it's a chance to look ourselves in the mirror. It shows us who we are and where we are, what our attitudes to things are, and you've seen that in various kind of social causes in recent years. This is a test of how much we are serious about how much we talk about mental health, to be perfectly honest. If we are judging players in the middle of September for not being at their best, 3 months after one of their
being off a step.
Yeah. Oh, he's a step short.
His pace is gone.
3 months after one of their best friends has died. I think that suggests that we are not necessarily living our values. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, again, as you say this, I'm just like, we're not going to live our values, because that is football. But ultimately, what is going to be, I mean, deeply complex, deeply emotional. You've nailed it. Is we're about to see just a season of public ritual. Collective mourning, but we also need to create space for the private grief, the private mourning, which is going to come. It's not something you just get over. It's not an injury that you come back from. You need a couple of games to play yourself back into football shape. It's going to be with this team all season. It's going to be with the fan base for a generation or longer. But to the football, and what an off-season this has been for Reds fans. $400 million spent by Fenway Sports Group, massive, almost dream names incoming. Creative brain of Florian Wirtz, the flashing blade that is Hugo Ekitike, the thrust of Jeremy Frimpong, and the chaos that is Milos Kerkez. But the new frontline, Luis Diaz, is gone. Darwin Nunez, gone. Number 20, forever in our hearts. This is one of the biggest squad overhauls I've ever seen a defending champion experience, Raw. They even have young starlet 16-year-old Rio delivering rainbows of joy. But it's not just a slew of new players to bed into the Premier League. It's also a tactical evolution. When Arne Slot came on our show, we posted on YouTube over the weekend, he said Liverpool have no choice. If you're not evolving, you're going backwards in this modern Premier League. Style of play is going to be different, where I expect a lot more forward thrust. But is this overhaul too much change to manage all at once?
Well, the sense last season, I think, was a little bit that it was strange that Slot came in and looked at the squad and thought, I'll add Federico Chiesa, who is largely just a song. That's all Federico Chiesa is. He's just a chant. And other than that, I'm happy to work with Jurgen Klopp's last squad. It feels very much like this summer they're building from a position of strength, which was always the way that Liverpool did things, the way Manchester United in their kind of imperial phase did things. But it's also like this is Slot putting his stamp on this team. You know, you saw in the Community Shield a little bit of, okay, this feels slightly more, for want of a better word, not to stereotype, Dutch. It wasn't quite the same as last season. They're clearly going to try and do things differently, right down to the shape. So last season they were still basically playing a 4-3-3. This season, Wirtz is playing as a 10. It's a 4-2-3-1, and they didn't have Alexis McAllister and Ryan Gravenberch there. There are going to be teething problems. There are going to be bits where they're not quite sure, where their brains are saying, we have done this for 5 years. Now we're being asked to do something new. Hang on, which bit am I meant to be doing? That will take time. And as much as there has been all this excitement around the players that Liverpool have signed, I think for a lot of fans in this situation, Liverpool fans be the same as for any other club, thinking, hang on, I like all these new players coming. This is exciting and interesting. I hope Alexander Isak comes too. But also thinking, hang on, it looks like these people don't know each other that well. Just football's about relationships, about partnerships, it's about bonds. The bonds take time to come together to kind of congeal. That's not the right word. But let's go with it, Rog. Liverpool aren't different to that. They're not exceptional. They're building from a position of strength, which is great. And long term, I think this will make them stronger. But maybe in the short term, there will be weaknesses and kinks to iron out.
It's going to be fascinating, particularly to see how Mo Salah evolves again. Mo's really soared when he's got a centre forward playing alongside him who is often a decoy or creates space for him to cut inside. Ekitike seems all of like one game to overreact to from a competitive perspective. Seems he's less the subservient facilitator, more like a focal point in his own right. Their chemistry is going to be fascinating to watch evolve. And talking about evolving chemistry, Manchester City, who we think of as that inevitable winning machine, that Death Star, Pep Guardiola, the avant-garde, influential, tactical brain that doesn't just win things, but he's influenced the entire football world. They are, and he is, but everything has its day. Watching City last season, a wounded beast raw, Rodri-less, a shadow of themselves. So many of the greats like Kevin De Bruyne probably kept on a season too long and then bolted on an attempt to transform the squad in the January. Really a build of builds, a bit like strapping on wings when you're mid-flight in heavy turbulence. We saw Pep face scraped, the anguish, the iconic figure, the master of control, suddenly looking very Natalie Imbruglia, cold and shame, lying naked on the floor. I didn't like it. His team lost back-to-back to Bournemouth, Brighton, Spurs. It was at Liverpool in one stretch in November. They stabilised. Spoiler alert, they came third. But that Club World Cup loss to Al Hilal, out went Kevin De Bruyne, pushed out, not by choice. And so many new signings, most notably dual KDB replacements. Are they? We don't know. We'll find out. $64 million Dutchman, Thierry Reinders from AC Milan, young French wonder, Ryan Cherki. So far been sharing space and time. Cherki, a flamboyant creator. Reinders, more buccaneering. Both live wire energizers. Can they play together? Will they play together? Can Pep get the best out of them individually? Will City go as they go?
I think City are the most interesting team in the Premier League this season, to be perfectly honest, which is not something I've thought for a long time, because for so many years when they were so much better than everybody else, certainly better than everybody else apart from maybe Liverpool and Arsenal for a bit, they were quite boring, to be honest. They won every game 5-0. They never lost. There wasn't a weak point. They were perfect. And I think their fans loved it, obviously, but it left me kind of emotionally quite cold, because you kind of think there's no jeopardy here. There's no chance of you losing. Even Manchester United, when they were the dominant force, younger listeners, Manchester United used to be good.
It's true. It's like Hasselhoff used to once be a heartthrob.
We used to think David Hasselhoff was attractive.
Yeah.
But United had the common
More
decency.
recently than United have been a
Similar timescales. Dominant in the 90s, David Hasselhoff and Manchester United. The both helped to topple the Berlin Wall. But United had the common decency to leave it late. The concept of Fergie time was because they kept being 1-0 down and then scoring 2 in injury time, which does suggest that the games were quite tight. Never tight with City. They were 4-0 up inside 20 minutes. But this season, there are so many questions. Can Guardiola tame Ryan Cherki and Ryan Aït-Nouri, who are these kind of really instinctive talents? Should we want Pep Guardiola to tame them? Maybe not. Will Reinders, who I love, one of the best players in Serie A the last couple of years, a really wonderful player to watch, really exciting. Will he be able to take that form to Manchester City, to the Premier League? What's the kind of qualitative step up there, I think is fascinating. But the main thing is, Pep Guardiola's never done this before. He's never had to rebuild from a position of weakness. He's only ever taken a team that's essentially perfect and recalibrated it so it's perfect in a different way. He's never had to look at a team and think, lots of the elements here aren't working. How do I make this click again? And I think the thing that's fascinating is City at their best had an aura. Teams went to the Etihad and knew they were losing. It was that classic kind of a 2-0 defeat is a good result type thing. That evaporated last season. Teams were going to the Etihad and thinking, we can get something here. And in the first bit of the Club World Cup, you sort of thought, okay, maybe City are getting back to something. But then Al Hilal went and beat them, and you thought, maybe that aura is harder to regain than it kind of looks like. It could be that City win their first 8 games and look imperious from October. But if there are a couple of missteps, then I think that we might find that City, as we knew them, the team that won every single game, all of the time, maybe that version of City are gone.
Maybe they're buying the wrong people to bring in. If it's just about Aura, they should be buying the Ibiza final boss and the kid on the end of the boat. Just big signings, change everything. But the bad news for City is Rodri suffered an injury setback, means he's going to be out until at least mid-September. So here's a big question for me. You've talked about the tactical challenge facing Pep Guardiola. There's also the human one. He's been giving out interviews in the pre-season to GQ about how he can see the end. And it will be the end for some time. The great phrase, I'm going to go and play with the cows, which seems like a line that's kind of ripped from The Godfather that had happened to Luca Brasi up to 15 years after this. Could this be Pep's last dance rule? I mean, it is bloody hard to be a legendary coach. It always has been, but never more than in modern football, the crucible of the pressure. Every single coach has a sell-by date. This is a manager, who was burnt out at Barcelona after, 4 years? 3 years at Bayern Munich. He's been at City now. This is his 10th season. We're going to find out, was last season just a blip or a dip? And how do we know the difference?
That's a great question. I think what makes it more complicated than anything is the fact that the other teams keep moving. It's not static. So Guardiola could improve City enormously this season with that magical Pep touch that makes him the best manager of his generation, maybe the best manager of all time, but they might still finish second because Arsenal might be better or Liverpool might be better or Manchester United might be better. It's unlikely, but it's possible. I think judging that will be impossible. My sense, I've got to admit, is that this will be his last season at City. I don't think he thought he'd do 10 years. I don't think anybody else thought he'd do 10 years. There was nothing that made it look like he might do 10 years. And I just wonder whether, in signing the contract last season, at the height of the collapse, the depth of the collapse, I suppose, it was a token of loyalty. It was saying, this is my responsibility, I'll get us out of this. I wonder whether that was designed partly with Jurgen Klopp in mind, that when Klopp left, it shocked everyone because he wasn't coming to the end of his contract. It was almost like he signed a 2-year deal so that he could leave in the middle of it. And I do wonder whether Guardiola has got something similar in mind. My guess would be if City win the league this season, which is enormously possible, certainly more possible than Manchester United, then I think that would be Guardiola out. If they win one of the major 2 trophies, I think that might be the point at which he says, okay, this is when I bow out.
I've run out of avant-garde denim designs. I've done all I can do in the game. I'm going to follow Greals to Everton.
Maybe not that.
God, come on, Pep. We'll take you from City, who are hoping for an Oasis-style renaissance, to a club who, when it comes to iconic Manchester bands, have been more like The Fall. Manchester United, You're reigning Premier League Series champions. You'll never sing that, Raw. Last season was, I think the royal family used to call it an annus horribilis or something like that. Just 7 wins in 27 games. 15th place finish, their worst since that relegation 1973-1974 season. Unable to score. The football was insipid. New owners cost-cutting everywhere. A humiliation in its own right. We all empires must fall, we said over and over again. And losing the Europa League final to Tottenham, which was really like watching Millhouse get beaten up by Frido Corleone. 18 league losses, so many that Ruben Amorim had to apologise to fans on the last day of the season. We'll talk about him in a minute. But compared to that, the off-season's almost been like a pleasant surprise. Every United fan I was talking to, they're like, how am I pleasantly surprised? The coins have been scraped together to bring in some real talent, almost to invest in Amorim's vision, kind of. 2 number 10s in Brian and Mbeumo, and the shoot-on-sight spectacle snatcher, Mateus Cunha. And this week, height, still rough diamond, big unit striker, Benjamin Sesko. 10s play quite beautifully with Bruno Fernandes, or they have in pre-season. But first, Raw, are the new players enough?
They are a distinct improvement. I think that's definitely true. I think Mbeumo is an excellent signing. I'm really, as a Liverpool fan, annoyed that Manchester United have signed him. I think he will do really well and he's a great character. Cunha, I'm less sure of. Cunha looked great for Wolves in patches, but it does make me think that Manchester United's scouting system might amount to watching Match of the Day. That's a slight worry for me. And Sesko, I think, will be fine, and I think has got a really high ceiling. I think he'll be an upgrade on Rasmus Højlund or Joshua Zirkzee. My worry with Sesko is that lots of other teams looked at him and didn't sign him. And that would make me think, OK, so United seem to have been kind of enticed into the battle for his signature because Newcastle wanted him, which isn't the best reason to sign a player. They will make Man United better. United will not be as bad as they were last season. But my big query, Rog, is I still don't think these players fit Amorim's system. I don't think you can get Bruno Fernandes, who is your captain and best player, in a team with Benjamin Sesko and Mateus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo and Amad Diallo. I just don't think that can happen. You also still don't have any real kind of cover in midfield, especially given that Amorim doesn't seem to especially like Kobbie Mainoo. It still feels like a club that isn't quite joined up.
Yeah, and we've got to talk about the manager, the evangelist for his system, the only system, Ruben Amorim. United have stood by Ruben Amorim. I'm old enough to remember last season, mid-season, when he arrived with all the smiles and all the aura, and then quickly lost both. United lost 18 games last season. He tried always a policy of radical honesty, threw everyone and pretty well everything under the bus, almost dared the board at times to sack him. There were a lot of fans who were frustrated. I remember he came on our show and a lot of the comments were like, that lad does more interviews and he gets wins, he does. And it was fair. He spoke a lot. How does he prove he was worth all that trouble, Raw? What does success have to be this season for Manchester United?
I mean, the basic answer, and it sounds like an oversimplification, is they've got to win a lot more football matches. They have to improve drastically.
What is that, though? Top 6? Is that like, yes, progress? Does that have to be top 4? That's where we are. We're United. We're a Champions League team.
I suppose maybe, can you do it by a process of elimination? So if we rule out them winning the lead, which seems fair, if they qualified for the Champions League through the lead, that is definitely progress. If they make top 6, so they get back into Europe, yes, but is it enough progress? Not entirely sure. Is 7th progress? Not really for Manchester United. It's not enough progress to justify what they went through last season. So by that process of elimination, Rog, which I've just done in my head.
You're missing out the Premier League Series champions.
I mean, they have already won that.
Yeah, I mean, silverware.
But they also have the advantage, Rog, they're not in Europe. And that is a huge bonus for him, because not only does it mean that he can keep his players fitter and fresher, but there's far more training time. So I think in those circumstances, he has to be looking really top 6 at least. We shouldn't forget that it is Manchester United and that United's standards are supposed to be higher. It's not enough to say, I finished 9th this season. Bear with me again. United don't get to finish 15th.
What is that? What is that statement now? We band it around a lot. I'm hearing Talk Sport. I'm hearing Talk Radio. I'm hearing a lot of but this is Manchester United. What is Manchester United now? What does that even mean? Ultimately, there's the myth of who we are, and there's the who we are, and there's who we've been along the way. What does that even mean anymore? We've got to remember, this is Manchester United. In America, since the Premier League came on NBC in America in 2013, a large amount of the newer viewing audience, 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds in America, only know Manchester United as this shambolic grey gardens talking about aspiration, self-sabotaging, and banging on about past kind of glories.
Are they the Cowboys?
Yeah, in many ways. We're this is. I mean, at a certain point, this is not who we are. Becomes exactly who you are. I just don't know when that is.
That's a really good point, and I think you're right that there is. It would be helpful for Manchester United to reflect that, okay, things have gone sufficiently pear-shaped that we have to think differently as a club. That we can't say, well, 7th isn't good enough, Ruben, because we're Manchester United. We have to accept that this is a process.
Yes. It's like a bald man. I once had hair. This is not who I am. No, you're a bald man.
But I just wonder whether...
You're a bald bastard.
Institutionally within clubs, I don't think that's how clubs think.
What?
I think clubs think about toupees and going to Turkey for hair transplants. I think that is what clubs do. You look across Europe, and if you look at the teams that are kind of comparable to Manchester United in terms of their history and their heft within their domestic settings, you have like AC Milan, who would regard themselves as being European royalty. And it's taken Milan years and years and years to understand that the landscape has shifted around them, that they're not the top of the tree anymore. They're not the apex predator. They have grasped it now, and they are being reborn by Christian Pulisic. Inter Milan,
our Lord and Saviour.
Similarly, I would say that Inter Milan aren't even on the same kind of broad global level as Manchester United historically. But Inter came out, and their American owner said in the summer, or before the summer, we're going to start buying young players. And all the fans were like, well, no, you're not. We're Inter Milan. We are a destination. And you think, well, you need to look around a little bit more, lads. And I think United, it would be helpful if they could reset their expectations. But I don't think clubs can, Ron.
Oh my God, this podcast is genuinely bending my brain. Ultimately, we're all just screaming into the void, who am I? And the void screams back, but we're Manchester United. From Manchester United to the team that despises them more than pretty well any other, Leeds United. I'm so happy they're back in the Premier League. This singular culture, the fan culture, I love it. It's like half dream, half just straight talking piss and vinegar at any one time. Both of them living side by side in kind of melding tracks, fanatically followed. They return as last season's championship title winners on goal difference over Burnley, strengthened the squad with, some familiar Premier League character actors. I can't wait to watch Sean Longstaff play for Leeds United. Really a symbol of, I think, their overhaul or their tweak in this postseason in which they hope they can thwart relegation. It's the one word, physicality. I think they believe the 49ers ownership. They've looked at the data and they believe grit, strength, size, power, set pieces, good heading, really good heading. Both sides of the ball will keep them up raw. First 7 signings of this summer for Leeds, average height 6'2". I mean, they're like a footballing equivalent of an NBA squad of bigs.
I think Leeds have looked at what happened to them last time in the Premier League, where physically they were lacking. I think they've looked at what happened in the Championship when they came up, when they scored a lot of goals but had a little bit of a soft core. And they've decided that the thing that they are lacking is, like you say, grit, experience. Just the other key stat with a lot of those signings is their age. They have not gone out and bought 21-year-olds. They are buying players who are 25, 26, 27, kind of peak years, ready to go, plug and play, make us tougher. And I think that's really smart. I have a vested interest in Leeds staying up, Rog. It's the closest Premier League ground to my house. I like that.
It's convenient.
It's easy to get to, despite the parking situation at Elland Road. And it's good, do you know what, to be honest, it's good for the area. You really notice what it means to a place to be in the Premier League when that place isn't necessarily in the Premier League all of the time. And to Leeds as a city, it's really meaningful to have a Premier League team. So I tend to see the best in Leeds. But I think that looking at their recruitment strategy, Longstaff is a great example of it. It's quite smart. You don't need to be too clever. You don't need to be buying players who are who have got kind of high ceilings and stuff. Just go and buy players who are already at their ceiling and know what they're doing.
It gives me great delight in life that the Fonz, Henry Winkler, is like a proper Leeds fan. It's so like wonderfully discordant with the essence of Leeds, yet it fits perfectly. They'll rely on Dutchman Joel Pirot to continue his goal machine ways from the Championship. I will say they have a slightly unhealthy dependence on Dan James's ability to consistently create in the Premier League. I'd just say Godspeed Leeds. Do it for my friend Larry Nance. Oh, and TJ McConnell. From one Northern power, hoping to reclaim their standing almost like House Stark, to another, Newcastle United. Oh, dark side on Tyneside. I'm old enough to remember last season, Raw, when they won the Carabao Cup. First domestic trophy since 1955. It was magnificent. They qualified for the Champions League too. All of that feels like it was honestly Tracy Chapman's happy memories of driving in a car, speed so fast, felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us and Eddie Howe's arm felt nice wrapped round my shoulder. Now, not a single player outside of Anthony Elanga and relegation lover Aaron Ramsdale want to head up north, which is crazy. Remember, they play in the Champions League, people. They got Saudi Arabian owners who are supposed to have profound underlying wealth. But Newcastle right now is kind of stacked in there alongside Chernobyl and I think Kabul in terms of desirable cities to play in. Player after player after player, almost mockingly are turning them down. The list is crazy. Liam Delap, João Pedro, Ekitike, Benjamin Set, more have kind of used them for leverage, then ditched them. Star striker Alexander Isak has almost become a prisoner of conscience. I don't like to be hyperbolic. Front office in disarray. Board said to be in chaos. Amanda Staveley, the executive who brokered the Saudi takeover, was ousted in a boardroom power struggle last summer. Eddie Howe left looking, so bereft. Raw, the Toon, they've got financial fair play problems, PSR challenges. But why is it such a bad summer? Is there a way this can end well? I guess I'm asking, are the Saudis still interested?
That is a genuine question I think you have to ask now, particularly because, and we touched on this the other day, that because of the Darwin Núñez deal, that is very clearly kind of strengthening. I presume coincidentally,
it's not money laundering.
I'm absolutely saying that it's not money laundering.
Allegedly,
but it is weird that the same people who own Newcastle have given Liverpool some money so they can go and buy Newcastle's best player. That seems to be what's happened. And you'd have thought at some point someone at PIF, who own both Al Hilal, who bought Núñez, and Newcastle, would have said, hang on, do we really want Darwin Núñez this much? Does it have to be him? Why can't we go and get someone else?
For everybody? Can Everton just try and go in for Bruno Guimaraes, and then Saudi Arabia will come in and buy Mikalenko for 100 million and be like, go for it, lads.
Possibly.
I love this. This is amazing. I think we found
the loophole.
Yes.
To me,
wait till Todd Burley finds it. By the way,
I'm sure he's already there. To me, it shows why clubs are vulnerable when they're owned not only by nation states, effectively, but as part of multi-club ownership groups. It's not ideal. This is the bad side of it. Some of us who've been warning about it for a while might say, maybe this is what we were talking about. I think there's two big issues for Newcastle. One is you've touched on already, the front office. There is no one to get those deals done. It's why you have a sporting director. Newcastle don't have one.
It's just a fax machine just fumbling pages onto the floor.
Well, I presume the person
get a little paper catcher.
You need someone there manning the fax machine.
Yeah.
Eddie Howe is doing the deals. Eddie Howe is taking on that kind of traditional manager role, which is fine. It used to work really, really well. But it's not ideal when you're also trying to coach a team. And I think they've struggled because of that. It's not Eddie Howe's fault, but he's been the one kind of holding the baby effectively. And the other thing is that it seems to me there's a lack of strategic thinking. I get why Newcastle don't want to sell Alexander Isak. Totally understand it. It would be heartbreaking for the fans. It's a blow to their pride. It's a little bit of a reminder of where they are in the pecking order at the moment.
And they're kind of like, take any of the other players, just not our best one.
Why do you want to buy our best player? Why don't you take someone who's worse than him? At the same time, it solves an awful lot of problems for them.
Take a Longstaff.
We've got loads of long staffs.
Yes,
we'll do you a 2-for-1 deal.
Pick up a long staff.
Just on your way out.
I'll take the dad.
Do the self checkout and take a long staff as a prize. No, I get why they don't want to sell Isak, but it solves their PSR problems, and it gives them that chance to say we are now rebuilding this squad, this team, rather than keeping hold of one player. And I think there's a point at which they their pride is making them make decisions in a way that is not that helpful. And the other thing is that you look at what they're doing in terms of strikers, they're very clearly now sort of 5th, 6th, 7th down the list. That's not a good idea either. You're getting players who you don't really want. We talked the other day, sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't do. There's a point at which you have to say, do you know what, we're not that committed to this player that we want to spend probably $50 million in fees and wages and whatever on someone we're not that sure about. Newcastle don't appear to be able to make that leap just yet, and that's dangerous.
Can't wait for Eddie Howe's press conference when Newcastle comes second at the end of the season. He just says, well, they do say the best deals are the ones you don't do, and we did a lot of them.
But this is the thing, that Newcastle last season, what made them great, especially in that kind of late winter, early spring period leading up to the Carabao Cup final, was their physicality, their intensity, their unity. That was what made that Newcastle side so kind of good. There's a risk that they've lost the unity, but they also need to kind of remember that having a purpose, having a point to prove is quite a powerful thing in football. And if the thing you're trying to prove is Alexander Isak really should want to be part of this team, whether he's freezing himself out or whether he's playing for somebody else, that's a way to bond the team together. There is a weapon in there somewhere.
No one wants to be here and we don't care. It's quite a variation. On
No one likes us, even us.
Even us. Yeah, we hate ourselves. Let's go! Staying in the ends and using the term North, admittedly, very liberally here. Let's head to Nottingham Forest.
That's the North.
Is it really the North?
Nottingham's the North.
That was very definitive.
Nottingham's definitely the North.
Is Aston Villa the North?
No.
Yeah, what's the dividing line, baby?
It's around Brian Clough Way.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Brian Clough Way. Is
Brian
that the
Clough Way,
official, like the 49th parallel?
There's like military installations there. Or there will be one day, Rog.
DMZ line.
It's Brian Clough Way is the road that leads from Nottingham to Derby, and from Derby to
You
Nottingham.
think of Nottingham as the North?
I think Nottingham is spiritually the North. People from Nottingham would say they are in the East Midlands, but I think that's the North.
Spiritually the North. My God. That's my house in New York City.
But to me, the north of England is all of it apart from the bit near the M25, which is the London Ring Road, the kind of road that runs around London. Everything else
that sign that just says the North.
Everything else is spiritually the North. As soon as you can see the road signs for the North, you're in the North.
That is so funny. When you say to people in London, and I always say we're going up to London, and they always get very annoyed. They're like, no, you're going down to London. You get like genuinely. I don't know why I'm saying that. That's spiritually the North. God bless. I mean, I must say Liverpool essentially doesn't think of itself as the North at all. It thinks of itself as just a magical kingdom that should almost be a principality like Monaco or Monte Carlo in its own right.
And Newcastle ridiculously thinks of Leeds as the South.
That's so funny.
Well, you're not as far north as we are.
This, by the way, Americans who are listening, is like trying to work out whether Maryland is the South or not. It's cut from the same cloth kind of debate. But as I said, Nottingham Forest, a team that brought so much joy to a rollicking City ground last season with their pace and Chris Wood's season. Career dreams are made of potent-wise, but then lack of squad depth did them in. Nuno used just 23 players, the lowest by some stretch in the league, and they lost control of their extremities at the last, plummeted to 7th place. Still good enough to return them to Europe for the first time in 30 years. Good news is they held on to their Morgan Gibbs White, definitely not against his will. It was quite surreal to watch, to be honest. Bad is 1 goal, 0 wins in Forest 7 pre-season games so far. Raw, they soared so beautifully. It was almost Icarus-esque. The wax wings, the sun at the end. They were also heavily tipped for relegation before last season. So how will they all do while the world's watching?
Yeah, I wonder whether they might fall into a little bit of the version of the Newcastle trap, which is that you do really, really well, you surprise everybody, you qualify for Europe, in Forest's case, the Europa League, by slightly less than Sporting means, and then you struggle the next season just because of the weight of fixtures. You can't overestimate how much more complicated it is to play twice a week than once a week. That is the thing that Forest will have to deal with in the Europa League rather than the Champions League, admittedly. They were within a whisker of the Champions League. They could have qualified for the Champions League on that final day, I think. And it's a disappointment that they didn't, because they deserved to over the course of the season. They were the story of the season. My worry is that it looks this summer a little bit like things might have stalled, gone a little bit stale. They've not refreshed quite as much as you'd want them to. Lost Anthony Elanga, which is more of a blow than maybe I think people are giving it credit for. They may well come again. They may well come late. They may well add more bodies.
James McAtee
in the next few weeks. They do like signing players, Nottingham Forest. But as things stand, I think it might be a season where they have to accept that the journey is Europe, and the Premier League finishes 11th.
I would love Marinakis to come on the show. I've got so many questions. To Lancashire and JJ Watt's Burnley, as they're officially known, the Bene and Hot Sabat lads. Let's delve into our new friends for this Premier League season. Knowing that, here's the bad news. For the past 2 seasons, 3 teams that came up from the Championship have gone straight back down. We're wondering whether newly promoted Burnley and Sunderland particularly can buck this trend. Burnley have just lost so many key players from last season. Their goalkeeper hero, James Trafford, CJ Egan-Riley, the quite electric Josh Brownhill. They're relying, ultimately, I think, speaking to Burnley fans, on their naivete last time around, the experience that got kicked into them during that Vincent Kompany kind of avant-garde, play out the back disaster of a season. Sunderland came up via the playoffs after 8 agonising long years in the wilderness, to have the tenacity, the spirit to be resummoned. I adore that city. It's a historic club, mad, passionate supporters. The transformation to get them back has been remarkable to witness. It's a really, truly grand old team of English football. They built through an emphasis on youth, academy growing talent. But after getting promoted, I think they spent 140 million in the transfer market, including the return of 32-year-old Arsenal cult hero Granit Xhaka for one last dance. But here's the stat both teams are dealing with, and it is incredible. 2023-24 season, this is Swiss Rambles data. Premier League clubs made $426 million on average. Championship clubs took in 54 million. That's the gulf they're trying to bridge. It's almost financial as much as a footballing challenge.
We're cheering for spreadsheets, Rog. That's what's happening. And ultimately, that's what kind of condemns the promoted teams to not almost certain relegation, but to a season in which they are going to battle relegation at the very least. Burnley and Sunderland will both be delighted to finish 17th. That's the cliche, but it's true. And it's because they're coming from so far back. Burnley, you're right, do have a little bit more experience. Because they've been in the Premier League before, the core of the squad. They also have Scott Parker, who Burnley will try and stay up in a very different way this season. They tried to play their way out of trouble when they were here before. Didn't work, really didn't work. This season, they will be as defensively solid as they can be.
And Scott Parker also changed himself tactically. He's gone hair curtains from his last disastrous.
I don't know if you know this about Britain, Rog, but curtains are back.
They are?
Yeah.
Well, he pioneered them. It's not the Scott Parker that, just was derided for his management of Bournemouth.
No, he's gone away from the kind of slick back thing.
That was a different time.
And curtains are now, there are 2 acceptable haircuts for young people in Britain, according to my nephew who's 16. They are curtains and what he refers to as broccoli head, which is sort of curly and forward. It's a weird thing. Anyway, Scott Parker's very much on trend there.
Yeah.
They will be defensively solid. They'll be hard to beat, Burnley. The question... That's always in fashion.
Yeah, thank you, beautiful.
The question with Burnley is whether they will score enough goals to stay up. They've signed Armando Broja. You watched him for Everton last season.
Yeah.
You can answer that question for me, Rog. Sunderland, on the other hand, they were kind of the surprise package. There were 3 teams in the Championship last season who were very clearly better than all of the others. They were Leeds, Burnley, and not Sunderland. It was Sheffield United who felt like the other team that could go up. Sunderland needed a lot of work doing, and they've really committed to it. Xhaka is probably the most high-profile signing, but they've made 4 or 5 others that speak to an ambition to stay up that maybe is slightly a surprise. So I think Sunderland will give it a go. I think Sunderland will really try, and they might take a few teams by surprise.
Broja, his time at Everton, really the memory he gave me, he's one of the few professional footballers who, when presented a chance, a guilt and his chance, he had an uncanny ability to be able to tackle himself. As he pulled his foot back, he was as likely to kick his other plant leg as he was the ball, and it almost became like a surreal avant-garde performance. I love watching him, enjoy him, take care of him, revel in him. Quick question from the MIB Discord from Jack Grims. Raw, is Opta's predicted table complete quack? Jack is referring to the Opta simulation, which is much banded around pre-season, where I think they run 10,000 simulations of the league. Why just 10,000? I mean, what we do together when we're going to come out with our predictions at the end of this Raw, many more have gone in. They decided the 3 new teams, straight up, straight down. They actually have Sunderland a 34% chance of coming 20th and bottom.
So it's quite in a sense because, number one, it's made before the transfer window shut. So these teams can change. You don't know who they're going to sign.
Yeah.
If Sunderland go and sign Kylian Mbappe, then that'll probably make a difference. They won't, obviously. But, I always feel as though all predictions before September the 1st are not complete. And also, football has an amazing ability to come up with the 10,001st simulation. You don't know how the season will go. There are so many unknowns. And I say this as someone who is pro-data, very much believes in the value of analytics and all that stuff. But you don't know how the new signings will settle. You don't know how teams' chemistry will change. You don't know what injuries teams pick up. Momentum and belief and confidence, these are all things that matter in football. And the predicted tables, I think, don't capture any of those things.
About them. They've got us talking about them.
I wouldn't necessarily base my emotional state on the Opta predicted table.
I think Sunderland more likely to... Kylian Mbappe, that would be amazing. And they're more likely to sign Taran Killam. I probably think he's Kylian Mbappe, but what do I know? I actually think a lot of fans of these 3 new teams are going to be baying really just to find a single club that is worse than them. I know my friend Larry Nance Jr., co-owner of Leeds, is like a shark looking for blood in the water for just any weaker team, which is a lovely segue to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Last season, Vitor Pereira took the points and then the pints. Have rescued the team after a quite brutal gauntlet of opening games. I think they had 1 point after the first 8 matches. This summer, they've had the heart of their team ripped out. Mateus Cunha, Ryan Aït-Nouri and Pablo Sarabia, all gone. Really the footballing equivalent of losing your hair. A lot of ball talk in this show, but that's, 31 direct contributions from the first 2 alone. God bless. They've gone out and brought themselves a wing-back, David Moller Wolf from Alkmaar. The Wolf of Wall Street. That is a lot of faith, Raw, in nominative determinism. It's like Arsene Wenger coaching Arsenal or Everton signing a player named Deeply Mediocre.
The one player who I think Wolves should be excited about is John Arias, the guy they signed from Fluminense, who was probably the standout kind of surprise package of the Club World Cup. Is that fair to say? He was the one who, from the South American teams, really grabbed the eye, apart from maybe Esteban Willian at Chelsea. You looked at Arias and thought, okay, he's a player who's got something about him. He will excite them. But there's an undeniable sense of drift at Wolves. It does feel a bit like the club is not really kind of investing in replenishing its squad, that there's no real obvious kind of plan there. Wolves' approach to avoiding relegation appears to be really believing
edging
that the 3 teams, that the 3 teams who came up will go straight back down.
Larry Nance Jr., as he's listening to this, is like wearing a yellow suit, rubbing his hands together, hiding behind a tree and licking his lips. And talking of deeply mediocre, let's wrap up this first half NFC North preview with Everton. I'd say it's a magical time to be a Blue. It really is. We've had that energy of the farewell to Goodison Park, the grand old home, and we're going to head towards the brand new home, the Hill Dickinson. I wonder how we're going to come up with a nickname for that place. We'll never be able to do it, will we? We have dreamed, we have yearned, we have suffered, we have celebrated, and we're still alive. Just to some degree, more than alive. We stand here. I think this summer's pivotal. Rule: new stadium, new energy, new owners, new front office, which is still bedding in. I think that a lot of the transfer problem has been just so many new pieces in that front office still gelling. And my highest hope, when I think about it, is that the big dick is going to be a chrysalis, like a caterpillar that we're kind of dragging ourselves in just. And then we're going to emerge as this stunning, soaring blue butterfly, like a blue morpho or whatever they are. Just iridescent cobalt wings, reclaiming the glory. I've seen it with my own eyes when I was a bloody kid. We won things, Raw. I do wonder whether we can return to that. However, I will say, was chatting about this before we started podding. I did this live show with Everton Football Club in Manhattan, live on stage with a lot of the players and David Moyes. And I was trying to, I was definitely quite effervescent. I was buzzing. The crowd was bonkers. They drank the place dry. It was a madness in there. And there was a heavy dose of reality. 9 members of last season's squad departed. There's been too few bodies coming in. We'll talk about one in a moment. But it's hard to, right now, be a team that doesn't offer European opportunities and sign talent. There's so many now that do. There's 9 teams who offer European talent. To be one of the few that doesn't makes it bloody hard. And Moyes just leant to the microphone, kept saying we need 9 or 10 new signings as his veins bulge. Who am I to argue with you? And then there's that other level, new stadium. It's going to be amazing. But remember Arsenal. Thierry Henry said, I used to know where I was on the field because of the old clock at Highbury. That was gone. It took the players a long time to adjust to the new home. It took the fans at Arsenal a long time. Goodison Park was like a bear pit. Roy, it's going to take time for this new place to become that kind of feral fortress.
Yeah, completely. But at the same time, Goodison Park was a pressure as well. Just Goodison Park turned. And there were, certainly in those last few years, you could see players kind of wilt almost when Goodison wasn't happy. And I wonder whether maybe because it's a blank canvas for the fans, whether there's a chance to kind of change the vibe of the crowd a bit as well. That might be quite helpful to an extent. I'm a little bit more positive about Everton than you are, and apparently than David Moyes is, which is weird.
And God, when he said that, genuinely, it was like if Father Time had come on with a scythe and told me I was soon to die, I probably would have felt less chill than when Moyes was screaming at me.
But you are right that if you think about, say, Sesko choosing Manchester United over Newcastle, that's a Newcastle who can offer the Champions League. How far down the pecking order
what Moyes said
would Everton be in the race for a player like that? Just probably quite a long way. And that is a problem because it means you're kind of trying to sign players who are the players who you really want are probably out of your reach. So you either have to be very clever and very quick to get deals done, which is hard with a new front office, or you end up with players you don't really want.
Or you get to welcome a Jack Grealish.
And that is not a bad thing in Everton's situation.
Can I just say, it's a magnificent bloody thing. I'm fairly disciplined. Fabrizio Romano has a show on our network. I work really hard to let him Fabrizio to the world and not to, annoy him, especially not in this transfer window when he works these crazy hours. This morning, I couldn't help but bother him like a child. I did at one point find myself texting him saying, Fabrizio, can you just here we go it, and then just make it real yourself? He told me it doesn't work like that, bro.
It doesn't, unfortunately, although it does feel increasingly like it used to be that you wait for the club to announce it.
Yeah.
Now it kind of feels like you just wait for the here we go, and then people assume the deal is done. The things can still kind of go wrong at that stage.
Yeah, within an hour, I will say, here we go'd it.
He obviously got onto Grealish's people and said, look, Rog wants it done. Let's just get it done. Let's just iron out the details.
Yeah.
I think Grealish is an incredible signing. And do you know what? He's a kind of...
So happy.
He's a totemic signing for Everton. He's the sort of signing that you can...
What's totemic? Is that like having sex with Sting?
Kind of.
Is that tantric?
In that you have to wait a while for it. The
Up to 7 hours, apparently.
But the signing Grealish is a sign of ambition.
Now stress me out. Come on, I'm now looking.
But it's also a chance to say to prospective other signings, look what we've just done. Look who we've just got. This is how serious we are. So I think that the other players they've brought in, Dewsbury Hall, I think is a great signing. Tieno Barry from Villarreal is a great signing. But Grealish is a bit of a game changer.
Oh, he is, man. I've got to say, I'm so bloody happy. You've got me worried that it's not true, even though it's been here we go. But I think Jack Grealish at Everton is you think about a great comedian, a great comic actor, just playing a straight role. I hope Everton are Grealish's Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems. We are built to adore and love him, that he rides with us. His redemption, tying to our redemption, it could be the Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler. It could be his role of a lifetime.
I think he's better suited to that kind of situation. I think what Jack Grealish needs is a club that adores him, a team that is built around him. I think he's a big fish in a small pond kind of guy. Sorry for the small pond.
Yeah, I was
You don't like that, do you?
Small pond. I like the delusion. This is not who we are. Going back to our earlier point, this is not who we are. We are Everton Football Club. We are a small pond.
For the time being,
Are we
but a small pond
fairly stagnant pond. We've got lily pads and just like...
It's a nice, a pretty pond. It's a small pond with a big dick.
Hey, bite your arm off. I'm in. This is, by the way, how we negotiated with Jack Grealish. You're a small pond with a big dick. Didn't that bite your arm off? I don't know. There's a good chip shop sitting there. I'm there, baby. I just say, God bless you, Everton Football Club. No finer place to bring this episode of our big Premier League previews to an end. Whoever you support, do not be afraid. Don't listen to our crap. Just remember my favourite. I've been reading a lot of Russian poets, raw, classic Russian poets, not
your new ones.
Not
those awful.
Those poets don't move me in the same way. Strangely enough. Oh, Vladimir, you are so great. We loathe everything that you hate. Yeah, those ones don't quite move me in the same way as, like, for instance, Platonov, who wrote, "From our ugliness will grow the soul of the world." So even the darkness, that's how it works, isn't it, Raw? Just embrace it.
Bill Platonov, yeah. Absolutely.
God bless. One more quick note. One of the joys of this season, the first we can live out together on our new Men in Blazers Discord community. A couple of thousand fans there already of this show have joined to chat about everything: football, life, Russian poets, Premier League, books, their dogs. There's like a crazy great dog subsection. They're pretty well everything. It's the official community of this show and of all our talent on the MIB network, men's and women's. The Discord's open. Just think of it as a virtual pub community. We all lived on Twitter circa 2014. I hope our Discord channel will be that again. Come and join this place of community, of joy, of creativity, of singular passion for the game we love. Football's better with friends. I guess that's what I'm saying. The link to join the Discord is in our show notes, whether this is on YouTube or on podcast. Come be with us. And big thanks again to Yeti for making Men in Blazers Football Holiday and this beautiful in-person communing, this taping possible. Raw, part 2 of the MIB Big Premier League season preview upcoming. It's just a sweatshirt change away, and there'll be top 4, bottom 3 predictions at the end of it. Oh.
But it's about the South, Rog, so it's not as good.
Yeah, I'm still not sure Nottingham's in the South. It's kind of its own middle to me.
That's what we were driving when we were driving back from France. You start to see the road signs after a while, and they say the Midlands.
Yeah.
And my son said to me, "Daddy, what are the Midlands?" And I think that's a great question.
God, where's Stoke?
North.
It is.
I can do this for every place in Britain.
It's so crazy to me. Stoke is, they're both nowhere to me. Stoke is the only place I've ever got out of my car and seen from a large distance 4 8 to 9-year-old children in a pack slowly walking towards me because they knew there was nowhere I could run. 3 of them had a brick. 1 of them had a large plank menacingly over his shoulder. I just thought it's magnificent. It's their own special place.
They breed them young in Stoke. In Stoke, there is a split between half of them have Scouse accents and half of them have Birmingham accents. And I think in a place like that, you don't stand a chance.
God, some of them must have both and just end up fighting themselves. Come back for part 2. We'll break this all down. Big love and courage.